Chapter 387. Tap, tap, tap. Although the elder with a gloomy face was very old, he still had a tall and straight posture. Under his blue aristocratic robes, one could clearly see the contours of his strong and firm muscles. His footsteps were not heavy, but they sounded like the beating of a drum, causing people to involuntarily look at him. An aura that was even more powerful than the skinny elders pressed down on Gray like a huge wave in the ocean. He's even stronger than the skinny elder. Gray's expression turned grave. The green-clothed old man that had appeared was clearly more powerful than the previous old man. His aura was so condensed that it seemed to have substance, as if it was about to transform into the pressure of a king. He felt that even with his current defense, he would not be able to last long against the elder. The elder's strength should have already exceeded that of a normal fawn blood warrior. If he was not wrong, this elder was very likely a desolate blood warrior who had already completed 1 or 2 rounds of training. He had already walked very far on the path of a desolate blood warrior. You indeed have some strength. No wonder you dare to provoke the Nahum family. The green-robed elder looked at Gray with a cold look in his eyes. Provoke the Nahum family? Nahum family. Can you be any more shameless? Gray was angered by the elder's words and sneered. If you want to take by force, then take by force. Don't label others as provokers for no reason. Such a big Duke family. Don't you even have this bit of courage? The 2 Warner Nahum brothers had slandered him for secretly harming the Nahum family servants. The skinny elder had slandered him for being an enemy of the Nahum family, and the green-clothed elder had slandered him for provoking the Nahum family. It should be said that they were truly worthy of being from the same family. Their words were all equally shameless. The moment they had arrived, they had labeled him with a big label. Then, they could safely kill him without tarnishing their own reputation. After all, he was the one who had provoked them first. You don't know what's good for you. Even now, you still dare to slander the Nahum family. The skinny elder reprimanded. Slander? Don't you know in your heart whether I'm slandering you? Gray sneered. Not only did you provoke the Nahum family, but you also dared to slander the Nahum family. Today, I will use your blood to wash away the insult to the Nahum family. The green-robed old man's eyes were filled with intense killing intent, locking onto Gray like 2 sharp blades. The skinny old man locked onto Gray from another direction. His eyes were also filled with murderous intent. I have no choice but to use the forbidden artifact. Gray prepared to take out the forbidden artifact. Facing 2 desolate blood warriors, one of whom had most likely completed 1 or 2 rounds of cultivation, had already exceeded the limits of what he could contend with at the moment. Only a forbidden artifact could deter the 2 of them. Although they could also use spatial teleportation to leave, Earl Fergus and the others who stayed here would most likely be in danger. Stop! The 2 elders prepared to attack Gray, and Gray prepared to take out the forbidden artifact. The atmosphere was on the verge of exploding. At this moment, a cold voice rang out. The crowd in the distance parted, and a group of people walked out. The leader was a young woman in a blue dress. The woman had a head of gorgeous purple hair. Under the sunlight, it shone brightly and was as soft as silk. She had a slender figure, a flawless face, and skin as white as jade. Her body exuded an incomparable nobility. Your Highness the Second Princess. Your Highness the Second Princess. Seeing her appear, the surrounding aristocratic family members could not help but greet her respectfully. This person was Sophia. Your Highness the Second Princess, I'm sorry to have alarmed you. It's not that the Nahum family is bullying you. It's him who attacked the Nahum family and provoked the Nahum family first. Seeing Sophia appear, the 2 Warner Nahum brothers and some other members of the Nahum family hurriedly greeted her and respectfully explained to Sophia. Sophia turned her head and looked coldly at Warner Nahum, who spoke. Her eyes were cold, and the latter's heart thumped. He had a bad feeling. Don't you find it strange? With the Nahum family's intelligence capabilities, why haven't they found any traces of him after searching for more than a year? Sophia asked coldly. Your Highness the Second Princess, you mean? Cold sweat appeared on Warner Nahum's forehead and the bad feeling in his heart intensified. No matter how he looked at it, the second princess did not seem to be just a coincidence. Otherwise, how would she know that the Nahum family had been searching for him for more than a year? I was the one who stopped the Nahum family from searching, Sophia said coldly, and then her voice was filled with anger. The threat of the Flame Kingdom is imminent, but you're robbing the nobles who came to support. Warner Nahum, is there anything you don't dare to do? Your Highness the Second Princess, Warner Nahum panicked. With the Nahum family's intelligence capabilities, they could not find the other party. He was indeed a little puzzled, but after knowing that there was news of the other party, he did not think too much about it. But he did not expect that behind the scenes, it was the royal family who was obstructing them. Moreover, the other party seemed to have a close relationship with the second princess. Otherwise, why would the second princess stop them and stand up for him in public? Slap! A palm appeared and slapped Warner Nahum's face fiercely. Immediately, Warner Nahum was sent flying and fell to the ground, blood flowing from his mouth. The one who made the move was a majestic man who somewhat resembled Warner Nahum. This was the current head of the Nahum family. He looked at Sophia with an apologetic face. Your Highness the Second Princess, please forgive him. Everything was done by this playboy on his own initiative. It was not the Nahum family's intention. My father and uncle were also deceived by him. Sophia took a deep look at the current head of the Nahum family and said, Duke Nahum, please strengthen your discipline. This kind of behavior is a disgrace to the nobles' reputation and smearing the reputation of the nobles of the entire Purple Moon Kingdom. Such a large-scale mobilization of the Nahum family's forces was obviously not something a direct descendant could do. However, she had to give the Nahum family a way out. After all, she was only a princess of the royal family and not the heir to the throne. Although her status was precious, she did not have much power. Strictly speaking, she did not have a right to give orders to the Nahum family. Therefore, she could only use the general situation to pressure the Nahum family and force the Nelm family to make concessions. Moreover, she could not go too far. Otherwise, it would backfire and cause the Nahum family to tear apart their pretense and disregard their reputation. Your Highness the Second Princess is right. I will strengthen my discipline. Duke Reem hurriedly said. The storm had completely ended with the Nahum family's concession and Gray's victory. Gray's name was destined to spread among the nobles of the Purple Moon Kingdom. Although he was a nobleman and was only in his 20s, he had the strength to contend with the desolate blood warriors. Such a battle record could be called a miracle. Of course, more people felt that Gray must have relied on some kind of magical weapon to be able to do so. However, even if he relied on a magical weapon, being able to contend with the desolate blood warriors at such a young age was already extremely extraordinary. Your Excellency Gray, if you have time in the future, please come to the Addison family for a visit. The potential that Gray had displayed made the eyes of many forces light up. Now that he could contend with the desolate blood warriors, his future achievements would definitely not be low. Some families expressed goodwill to Gray, such as the Addison family, the Kenneth family, the Cumberland family, and so on. However, some families maintained a distance from Gray because of the Nahum family. Although the Nahum family had given up on dealing with Gray because of Sophia, the Nahum family would probably not give up so easily. After all, Sophia was a princess without any real power. When she was present, she could naturally intimidate the Nahum family. However, if she was not present, she might not be able to intimidate the Nahum family. Gray, your injuries? Earl Fergus, Zero, Polly, and the others surrounded Gray. Looking at the wounds all over his body, they were both worried and shocked. Although they knew that Gray was extremely powerful, they did not expect Gray to be so powerful that he could actually contend with a desolate blood warrior. I'm fine. They're all minor injuries. Gray shook his head and then looked at Sophia, who was walking over. Many thanks. No need. Sophia frowned and warned him. Be careful in the future. The Nahum family will probably not let this matter rest. I understand. Gray nodded solemnly. He could naturally see that the Nahum family would not let this matter rest so easily. However, the current situation was far less troublesome than before. After today's incident, The Nahum family would definitely not dare to openly attack the Fergus family. Otherwise, it would incur the wrath of the public. The biggest possibility was that they would secretly attack him. With the forbidden artifact and spatial teleportation, he believed that he would give them a surprise when the time came. There were 3 people besides Sophia. One of them was the bearded man, Teresa. There were also 2 young women named Elaine and Julie. They were all Gray's acquaintances. Among them, the bearded man, Teresa, said, "What a jerk. There are rumors that the Nahum family likes to take things by force. I thought it was just a rumor. I didn't expect it to be true." In the following days, the storm caused by Gray gradually subsided. All attention was directed to the great enemy, the Flame Kingdom. While paying close attention to the movements of the Flame Kingdom, several high-level aristocratic meetings had been held. Gray did not participate in such meetings. Although he was qualified in terms of strength, his status was far from enough. After all, he was only a descendant of an aristocratic family. On this day, the Purple Moon Kingdom's aristocratic alliance finally made a move. They left Neum City and split into 3 groups, attacking the Flame Kingdom's alliance from 3 different directions. 2 of the groups, the Neum family and the Addison family, each led 2 marquis family and more than 10 small aristocratic families to attack the Flame Kingdom's alliance from the flanks. The remaining group consisted of the Purple Moon Kingdom's royal family, the Kenneth family, the remaining 3 marquis family, and many small aristocratic families. They formed the main force to attack the Flame Kingdom's alliance from the front. Gray's Sydney family was in this group. Chapter 388. Thump, 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 thump. A troop of more than 200,000 people was marching rapidly across the boundless plains. This was a shocking scene. As far as the eye could see, there were people wearing armor and holding weapons. Some of them were riding on war horses, while others were walking on foot. It was like a wave surging forward, sweeping forward. Among them, the elites of the aristocratic families were at the front of the cavalry. They were wearing excellent war armor and riding expensive war horses. Some of them were even riding blood fiends. There was a 3-meter-long berserk blood fiend named Gale Wolf with green fur all over its body. There was a 5-meter-long berserk blood fiend named Rock Bull with rock-like skin. There was a 3-meter-long berserk blood fiend named Ice Tiger with white fur all over its body. Although it was difficult to obtain a blood fiend cub, it was still possible for some aristocratic families with rich resources and exclusive hunting teams. Thump, thump, thump. The blood fiend's footsteps were as heavy as drums, causing the ground to shake slightly. The blood fiends were supposed to fight to the death when they encountered each other. However, under the control of their riders, they maintained a safe distance from each other and moved forward peacefully. Among them, the people from Sydney Hill were the most eye-catching. There were a total of 5 barbaric-level blood fiends. The smallest of them was 5 meters long, while the largest was 7 meters long. Their scales flickered, and their hair was thick. They either walked on all 4s or stood on 2 feet. They emitted a sound that was like the beating of a drum, causing people to be intimidated by them. However, they were not the most eye-catching. Among the troops, the most eye-catching was the direction of the royal family, followed by the Kenneth family. All the members of the royal family were riding blood fiends. Even some of the soldiers and generals were riding blood fiends. These blood fiends were of high levels. Among them, there were even 6, 8 to 9 meters long desolate-level blood fiends. Its enormous size and height made it stand out from the crowd of blood fiends like a crane in a flock of chickens. Their scales were as large as palm leaf fans and looked like metal. A terrifying aura was emitted from their bodies, causing the surrounding blood fiends to avoid them and keep a distance from them. There were also many blood fiends in the Kenneth family's troop. Their levels were generally high. Although they were not as exaggerated as the royal families, there were still 2 desolate-level blood fiends. Desolate-level blood fiend Hurricane Sheep. Desolate-level blood fiend Giant Rock Crocodile. Desolate-level blood fiend Forest Ape. Sitting on the Iron Arm Barbarian Ape's shoulder, Gray's gaze swept past the 8 desolate-level blood fiends one by one, and his eyes were filled with unconcealable shock. Compared to other families, the royal family and the Kenneth family were indeed much more powerful. Not only did they have desolate-level blood beasts, but they also had more than one. Gray speculated that the royal family might even have king-level blood fiends. However, that level of combat power was simply too terrifying. They didn't dare to enter the battlefield easily. After all, once they entered the battlefield, the enemy would definitely enter a similar level of combat power. This would cause the battle to escalate, and the casualties on both sides would be even more disastrous. The army was like a tidal wave, and the commotion they caused was like a tsunami. Many wild beasts and birds were frightened into fleeing in all directions, not knowing where to go in their panic. A few hours later, a huge city came into view. This was a city with walls made of black stone. It was extremely large and majestic, like a black mountain standing on the plains. Thunder Buddha City was the third largest city in Duke Niam's territory. However, it had already been occupied by the Flame Kingdom and was used as a frontline stronghold. Woo! With such a huge commotion, it was impossible for the Flame Kingdom's coalition army not to notice it. Along with the desolate Wu, the city gate of Thunder Buddha City opened. A large number of the Flame Kingdom's coalition army poured out like rolling dark clouds, and finally gathered into an army of more than 200,000 people. This was an elite army that had been baptized by slaughter. Everyone was exuding a murderous aura. Even the ordinary soldiers had a strong murderous aura. The strong murderous aura gathered together and covered the sky, as if it had dyed the sky red. It pressed down on the Purple Moon Kingdom's coalition army. The front part of the army was cavalry, while the rear part was infantry. At the front of the cavalry, there were also many blood fiends, just like the Purple Moon Kingdom's coalition army. Some of them were exceptionally large, and if there were no surprises, they should be desolate-level blood fiends. 1, 2, 3, 13. Someone was counting the number of suspected desolate-level blood fiends, and his face gradually turned pale. In the Flame Kingdom's coalition army, there were a total of 13 suspected desolate-level blood fiends. Although the number of desolate-level blood fiends did not represent all of the desolate-level combat power, as the wild blood warriors could not be identified with the naked eye. However, such a large number was still shocking. There are 5 more blood fiends. Gray could not help but be shocked. When he saw that the Purple Moon Kingdom's royal family and the Kenneth family had a total of 8 desolate-level blood fiends, he was already very shocked. However, he did not expect the number of desolate-level blood fiends in the Flame Kingdom to be even more terrifying. There were a total of 13 of them, which was 5 more blood fiends in his side. Flame Kingdom, you've gone too far. In the Purple Moon Kingdom, an old man stood on a bull-shaped desolate-level blood fiend with a spear in his hand. He looked at the Flame Kingdom's coalition army, and his voice was filled with anger. Although there was a distance of 100 meters between them, his voice was as loud as a bell and could be heard clearly. This was not the blood fiend's ability, but the result of his strong physique. His extraordinary physique allowed him to have a lung capacity that far exceeded that of an ordinary person. Naturally, his voice was also much louder than an ordinary person's. Overboard? I don't think so. Compared to the humiliation that the Flame Kingdom's royal family suffered, it's not worth mentioning. In the Flame Kingdom, an old man's mocking voice was heard. He was more than 2 meters tall, and he held a battle axe in his hand. He stepped on a huge, desolate-level blood fiend lizard and wore a yellow metal armor. His body was filled with a terrifying aura. The Purple Moon Kingdom has been very polite to the Flame Kingdom's royal family. What more do you want from the Flame Kingdom? In the Purple Moon Kingdom, another old man, standing on a desolate-level blood fiend, asked, "If the first princess or the second princess is married to His Highness Nichols of the Flame Kingdom, the Flame Kingdom will immediately withdraw its army." The old man from the Flame Kingdom, who was wearing metal armor and holding a battle axe, said, "Dream on." The old man on the bull-shaped, desolate-level blood fiend roared. His voice was filled with anger. If the Purple Moon Kingdom married the first princess or the second princess to the Flame Kingdom's royal family, because of the Flame Kingdom's coercion, it would definitely become a disgrace to the entire Purple Moon Kingdom. Since you're unwilling, then there's nothing more to say. Let's just fight our way to the Purple Moon Kingdom's royal capital. In the Flame Kingdom, another old man said coldly, "You've gone too far. Arrogant. You want the two princesses to marry the Flame Kingdom's royal family? Dream on." The Purple Moon Kingdom was filled with furious roars. Some of the young nobles were so angry that their faces were flushed red, and their weapons were clenched tightly. If the other party succeeded in forcing them, not only would it be a disgrace to the Purple Moon Kingdom's royal family, but it would also be a disgrace to the Purple Moon Kingdom's nobles. Then there's nothing more to say. Let me see how much the Purple Moon Kingdom has improved after more than a decade. An old man from the Flame Kingdom said coldly, "Charge!" As he waved his hand, the Flame Kingdom's allied army charged towards the Purple Moon Kingdom's allied army. The cavalry was in front, and the infantry was at the back. Like rolling rocks, there were sounds of landslides and tsunamis. At the very front was a horde of terrifying blood fiends. Among them, there were 13 blood fiends that were over 8 meters long. Every step they took caused the earth to tremble and the mountains to shake. It was as if heaven and earth were about to flip over. Charge! On the side of the Purple Moon Kingdom's allied army, there was also an old man who gave the order. Then, the Purple Moon Kingdom's allied army surged out like a tidal wave, charging towards the Flame Kingdom's allied army with a movement that was not inferior to that of the Flame Kingdom's allied army. Kill! Kill those bastards from the Flame Kingdom. Kill! Fight for the kingdom. Many of them were filled with murderous intent, and their faces were filled with anger. They were all infuriated by the unreasonable request of the Flame Kingdom. The rising anger turned into their murderous intent, making them look ferocious. Even the noble young masters, who were usually gentle, could not help but look ferocious at this moment. Is this the battlefield? Standing on top of the purple blood fiends that were charging forward, Gray did not feel afraid. Instead, he felt excited and full of fighting spirit. He was a rather rational person, but at this moment, he could not help but be affected by the atmosphere of the battlefield and become full of fighting spirit. The bronze-level sword-type weapon that he took from Warner Nahum let out a crisp sound in his hand, as if it was responding to his fighting spirit. Chapter 389. Boom! The two desolate-level blood fiends collided with each other, creating an earth-shattering tremor. It was as if heaven and earth were about to be overturned. The ox-type desolate-level blood fiend lowered its head. Its huge horns were like sharp blades as it charged towards the lizard desolate-level blood fiend. The lizard desolate-level blood fiend's sharp claws glinted coldly as it clawed at the ox-type blood fiend. At the same time, it spat out blazing flames from its mouth, causing blood to splatter everywhere. On top of the two desolate-level blood fiends, the spear-wielding elder from the Purple Moon Kingdom and the axe-wielding elder from the Flame Kingdom were also fighting. The axe-wielding elder from the Flame Kingdom swung his axe downwards, creating a huge crescent-shaped wind blade. On the other hand, the spear-wielding elder from the Purple Moon Kingdom thrust his spear forward, shattering the crescent-shaped wind blade. With their current strength, even if the blood fiends below them were fighting, they could still stand on top of them, as if they were walking on flat ground. Boom, boom, boom. Almost at the same time as the two of them clashed, the other desolate-level blood fiends and the people on top of them were also clashing with each other. The sound of the explosion was like a sudden clap of thunder. The terrifying shock waves were like blooming fireworks. It was gorgeous and eye-catching, but at the same time, extremely dangerous. This danger was not only aimed at the people fighting, but also at the people nearby. Poof! A huge wind blade rushed into the cavalry of the Flame Kingdom. Immediately, more than 10 cavalrymen and their horses were split in half. Their intestines and internal organs flowed out as blood splattered everywhere. The ground was like an overturned vat of red dye. Crackle, crackle. The aftermath of a lightning bolt rushed into the cavalry of the Purple Moon Kingdom. Immediately, more than 20 cavalrymen and their horses collapsed and turned into charcoal. Even the aftermath of a desolate-level attack was destructive to the surroundings. Kill, kill, kill the cavalrymen of the Purple Moon Kingdom and Flame Kingdom. as well as the infantrymen behind them, were also clashing with each other. Battle cries rose and fell one after another. Blood splattered everywhere as lives were lost. A cavalryman from the Purple Moon Kingdom stabbed a cavalryman from the Flame Kingdom in the heart with his spear, knocking him off his horse. However, in the next moment, the cavalryman let out a blood-curdling scream as his head flew into the air and his headless corpse rolled off his horse. One of the Flame Kingdom's soldiers sneered coldly. But in the next moment, a flash of sword light flashed past, and he and his warhorse were split into two halves. Human lives were as worthless as grass. This was the truest portrayal of this battlefield. Patter. The purple blood fiend that Gray was riding crashed into a berserk-level blood fiend of the Flame Kingdom. The berserk power of the collision sent the berserk-level blood fiend and the berserk warrior riding it flying backward, covered in blood. Before the berserker could stand up from the ground, Gray sent out a wind blade in front of him, cutting the berserker in half. As for the blood fiend, its neck was bitten off by the purple blood fiend's sharp teeth. Blood splattered all over the ground. Whoosh! An orange-red flame with scorching heat shot towards Gray like a meteor falling from the sky. Standing on the purple blood fiend, Gray didn't move. A stream of cold air shot out like a mist dragon and crashed into the orange-red flame, extinguishing it immediately. It didn't stop moving forward and crashed into a berserk warrior from the Flame Kingdom riding a blood fiend, freezing the berserk warrior and his mount into an ice sculpture. Puffed. After the cold air, a wind blade slashed across and split the berserk warrior's body into two halves under the ice. Driving the purple blood fiend, Gray attacked one of the Flame Kingdom's cavalrymen after another. A huge cold mist dragon swept out, and more than a dozen kingdom of raging flames, fiercely blood warriors on war horses were instantly turned into ice sculptures and died along with their mounts. A bolt of lightning flashed, and a berserk warrior from the Flame Kingdom who was charging towards Gray with a blade suddenly fell to the ground. A 10-meter-long wind blade slashed out, and several ferocious warriors charging at Gray were immediately cleaved in half and fell to the ground. Every time he attacked, someone would inevitably bleed and fall. Not a single enemy could withstand a single attack from him. Corpses of Flame Kingdom's berserk warriors fell one after another around Gray. Fresh blood dyed the ground beneath the purple blood fiend red. The soil had become wet, and there were even bits of flesh mixed into it. Gray stood on the purple blood fiend, his thick murderous aura like a coat draped over his body. In the eyes of those from the Flame Kingdom who died under his attacks, he was definitely a malevolent god of death. It wasn't that he was cruel and bloodthirsty, but that this was a battlefield and there was no room for mercy. If he didn't kill, he and his companions would be killed. Clatter, clatter, clatter. Gray's valiant performance quickly attracted the attention of the Flame Kingdom's berserk warriors. A middle-aged man wearing metal armor, riding on a berserk-level blood fiend, rushed towards Gray. Several earth spikes silently rose from the ground and pierced towards the purple blood fiend. At the same time, a green light that was several meters long suddenly spread out from the blade in the middle-aged man's hand. It emitted an extremely sharp aura and slashed towards Gray. Gray's fighting spirit was boiling. The sword in his hand vibrated, and then a violent bolt of lightning wrapped around the sword. It also spread to several meters long and collided with the huge green blade. Gray's power was inherited from the purple blood fiend and could reach this special level of the berserk level. The power of the lightning-wrapped sword was obviously stronger than the green blade of the middle-aged man. Boom! The green light wrapped around the middle-aged man's blade was shattered. The lightning-wrapped sword continued to slash towards the middle-aged man. The middle-aged man dodged and dodged the sword. However, the berserk-level blood fiend he was riding on had its head chopped off by the lightning. While Gray and the middle-aged man were fighting, the purple blood fiend that Gray was riding on smashed the earth spikes with its claws. Its terrifying power instantly shattered the earth spikes. Then, the purple blood fiend rushed forward and crashed into the middle-aged man. The middle-aged man slashed at the purple blood fiend, but didn't leave a single wound. Instead, He was knocked back continuously. Whoosh! A green river appeared and drowned the middle-aged man, who couldn't dodge in time. Visible wounds appeared on the middle-aged man's body. Many of them were so deep that his bones could be seen. When the green river disappeared, the middle-aged man was covered in wounds and looked extremely miserable. He was frozen in ice. Without giving the middle-aged man a chance to break free from the ice, Gray's sword, which was surrounded by surging lightning, became several meters long and slashed at the middle-aged man's neck. Instantly, half of the middle-aged man's neck was severed. At this point, the middle-aged man finally broke free from the ice on his body. However, all he could do was cover his bleeding throat. He couldn't even scream in pain. After killing his opponent, Gray looked at the situation of Earl Fergus and the others. Earl Fergus was riding on a bear-type berserk-level blood fiend. Relying on the berserk-level blood fiend's destructive power, he smashed a berserk-level blood fiend and a blood warrior, riding on it into meat paste. Zero was fighting with a young noble of the Flame Kingdom who was about the same age as him. Both of them were injured. Polly was fighting with an ordinary berserk blood warrior and had the upper hand. Bernal was riding on Hanhu and killing ordinary soldiers. Every time he swung his sword, an ordinary soldier would be killed. In the vicinity of Earl Fergus and the other 3 berserk-level blood fiends under Gray's control were rampaging. They were brave and invincible, attracting all the powerful enemies to them. As a result, the opponents of Earl Fergus and the others were not too strong. As for the 3 berserk-level blood fiends, there was no need to worry too much. At this point in time, the 3 berserk-level blood fiends had metallized, and their defense was comparable to that of a silver-armored rhinoceros. Even if they were besieged by multiple enemies, there were not too many injuries on their bodies. He then looked in another direction, and his expression froze. This is not good. I don't know when the other 2 teams will arrive. The Flame Kingdom had a total of 5 more Desolate-level blood fiends than the Purple Moon Kingdom. Although 2 of the Desolate-level blood fiends were blocked by the 2 wild blood warriors from the Purple Moon Kingdom, there were still 3 more Desolate-level blood fiends that were unmatched. One of the 3 Desolate-level blood fiends rushed into the ranks of the Purple Moon Kingdom and destroyed everything in its path. Corpses were left behind everywhere it went. People and blood fiends were constantly trampled to death under its iron hooves. Screams of agony continued. As for the other 2 Desolate-level blood fiends, they attacked the Purple Moon Kingdom's Desolate-level blood fiends and Desolate blood warriors. Immediately, the Purple Moon Kingdom's Desolate-level blood fiends and Desolate blood warriors were at a disadvantage. Whoosh! Whoosh! At this moment, the 2 wild blood warriors left their berserk-level mounts and rushed towards Gray with murderous intent. Gray could only withdraw his gaze and focus on his own battle. As for the overall situation of the battle, it was not something he needed to consider. He also did not have the kind of combat power that could influence the outcome of the battle. From the previous battle, the 2 wild blood warriors from the Flame Kingdom had already seen how powerful Gray was. Therefore, they attacked Gray together. A large amount of lightning appeared in front of one of them and attacked Gray in a meandering manner. As for the other person, a large number of shadow tentacles appeared nearby and turned into giant snakes that attacked Gray. The 2 of them attacked Gray from 2 different directions, one from the front and one from the back. Facing the attacks of the 2, Grimm's expression did not change. Near him, a long green river appeared and circled around him, wrapping him and the purple blood fiends in the middle. When the lightning struck the green river, it was as if a huge rock had been thrown into the river. It stirred up a wave before it finally calmed down. On the other hand, the shadow tentacles hit the green river and were quickly shredded by the wind blades in the green river. Cold air spread out and froze the shadow tentacles. The second level of the barbarian level. Seeing that Gray's blood beast ability had blocked their joint attack, the 2 barbarian blood warriors from the Blazing Flame Kingdom couldn't help but change their expressions. Putting aside the fact that the ability was strange, just its power alone was definitely at the second level of the barbarian level. The 2 of them were vigilant and wanted to pull away, but it was too late. Because at this moment, the green river surrounding Gray moved. It split into two and attacked one of the wild blood warriors. The two wild blood warriors immediately used their blood fiends and wanted to destroy the green river. However, they were only able to destroy a part of the green river before they were hit by the green river. Under the impact of the green river, wounds appeared on their bodies. Many of the wounds were so deep that their flesh had disappeared and their bones could be seen. After the green river disappeared, the two of them were frozen by the cold air of the green river and turned into ice sculptures. Facing the frozen opponents, Gray calmly attacked with two more green rivers. When the green river disappeared, large pieces of flesh on their bodies had disappeared. Even their internal organs had been shattered and they were dead. After killing his opponents, Gray did not even have time to take a breath before he heard a roar approaching. He saw two young men riding on barbarian-level blood fiends charging towards him with murderous intent. Their own blood fiends and the blood fiends' abilities, a total of 4 blood fiends' abilities were launched towards him. In an instant, he was surrounded by 4 barbarians. Chapter 390. The orange-yellow flames were like the sunset glow in the sky. The bluish-white lightning was like a giant bear tree. The wind blades were like a long green saber. The black gas was as black as ink, like the gloomy clouds in the sky. Almost at the same time, the abilities of the 4 blood fiends attacked Gray and the purple blood fiend that Gray was sitting on. The ability to control allowed Gray and the purple blood fiend to cooperate very well. The purple blood fiend quickly ran to the side and dodged the black gas. The black gas hit the ground, and a sizzling sound was heard. A large area where the purple blood fiend had been was corroded by the black gas. Whether it was grass or gravel, everything was being melted. Even the metal weapons that had fallen from the battle were no exception. This was a highly corrosive poison ability. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. As soon as they dodged the black gas, the green wind blades arrived one after another. The purple blood fiend raised its leg and extended its sharp claws, slashing at the green wind blades. Its sharp claws were like magical weapons, instantly slicing apart the green wind blades that were coming at it. At this moment, the flames and lightning were approaching. Whoosh! Gray made his move. A green river appeared and blocked the flames and lightning. The flames and lightning rolled in the green river, but they were eventually extinguished by the green river. Do you still remember us? 2 young men, riding on barbarian-level blood fiends, surrounded Gray. They did not attack immediately. Instead, they looked at Gray coldly. One of the young men had a head full of blue hair. He held a long spear in his hand, and his body was filled with a fierce aura. The other young man had a head full of gray hair. He was tall and had a sharp glint in his eyes when he blinked. "It's you." Gray recognized the 2 of them. To be precise, he had seen them before at the banquet that the royal family of the Purple Moon Kingdom had prepared for the visit of the Flame Kingdom. At that time, the gray-haired young man was already a barbarian blood warrior, while the blue-haired young man was a berserker blood warrior. He did not expect them to have become barbarian blood warriors. Don't you like to bully others with numbers? Today, we will satisfy you. The gray-haired young man sneered. Last time, he had to admit defeat before the battle, which made him very sullen. It was not because he was not strong enough, but because the demonic weapon that his opponent had was too terrifying. He could actually control 4 barbarian-level blood fiends. But now, the situation had reversed. There was only 1 person and 1 beast beside the other party, while there were 2 people and 2 beasts on their side. This kind of battle situation that was completely different from before made him feel refreshed in his heart, and the grievances that had accumulated were completely released. Attack! The gray-haired young man sneered and attacked. Gray was sitting on a barbarian-level blood beast. Its entire body was covered in bluish-white scales. It was the Thunderfall beast, a barbarian-level blood beast. With a roar, a bolt of lightning descended from the sky like countless branches of a tree and attacked Gray and the purple-colored blood beast. At the same time, he activated his wind-type blood fiend ability. Dozens of huge wind blades attacked Gray and the purple blood hand. On the other side, The blue-haired young man sat on a blood beast that was covered in black scales. It was unknown what kind of blood beast it was. It opened its mouth and spat out a jet of black corrosive smoke toward Gray and the purple-colored blood beast. At the same time, he controlled a long river of flames that burned toward Gray. Oomph! Gray snorted. A long green river appeared with the purple-colored blood beast as the center, forming a circle and then spreading in all directions. It was like a huge water column that suddenly fell from a high place and collided with the lightning, vines, poisonous smoke, and flames. This was a well-matched collision. Although the icy wind blades were powerful, they were, after all, against the attacks of 4 barbarian-level blood fiends. Violent destruction occurred at the places where the blades collided. The surrounding ground looked as if it had been burned by fire, struck by lightning, corroded, and slashed by sharp blades. Potholes were everywhere. Then all of a sudden, all of them exploded. The aftermath of the lightning, flames, ice, wind blades, and poisonous smoke, as well as the fragments of the wind blades, spread in all directions. A few cavalrymen from the Purple Moon Kingdom were contaminated by the poisonous smoke. Their flesh was instantly corroded at a visible rate, and in the end, nothing was left of them. A few cavalrymen from the Flame Kingdom were silently cut into pieces by the broken wind blades. More than 10 cavalrymen from the Purple Moon Kingdom and the Raging Flame Kingdom were struck by lightning and flames. Some of them were burnt to ashes, some of them were charred black, and some of them fell to the ground with bloody holes. When several barbarians fought, even the aftermath of the Blood Fiend's abilities was extremely terrifying. It was enough to kill a ferocious blood warrior. If a berserk blood warrior was careless, he might also be killed by the aftermath. Boom, boom, boom. Gray, the gray-haired young man, and the blue-haired young man continued to fight. The Blood Fiend's abilities from both sides continued to collide, and the aftermath continued to spread in all directions. The cavalrymen from the Flame Kingdom and the Purple Moon Kingdom, who were originally fighting nearby, retreated as if they were avoiding snakes and scorpions. With the place where the 3 of them were fighting as the center, a hollow area appeared in the surrounding dozens of meters. To be able to form a hollow area in the middle of the battlefield was not something that could be easily done. It could be seen that the destructive power displayed by the 3 of them was very strong. Damn it! How can his Blood Fiend's abilities still be so destructive after reaching the barbarian level? Didn't they say that the amplification would weaken after reaching the barbarian level? The aftermath of the explosion did not only affect the people around them. Gray, the blue-haired young man, and the gray-haired young man were the first to bear the brunt of the impact. The gray-haired young man and the blue-haired young man retreated while brandishing their weapons to block the aftermath of the Blood Fiend's abilities. Gray was only one person, but he used his Blood Fiend's abilities to block the attacks of the 2 men and 2 beasts, which made the 2 of them extremely shocked. Originally, according to Prince Nikel's deduction, when the opponent's mixed abilities reached the barbarian level, it was very likely that it would turn into a single ability. Even if it was still a mixed ability, its power would not be able to cross levels. But now, what appeared in front of the 2 of them was not just a single ability. Its power could cross levels and reach the second level of the barbarian level. This made the 2 of them feel that the battle was out of their control. Oh no! It was at this moment that Gray and the purple blood beast made a move that startled the 2 of them, causing them to be on high alert. In the face of the oncoming aftermath of the Blood Fiend's abilities, the man and the beast did not dodge. Instead, they rushed forward. Clang, clang, clang. The aftermath of the Blood Fiend's abilities hit the man and the beast, but the sound of metal clashing could be heard. Even when the corrosive mist hit their bodies, it did not leave a single trace of corrosion. After rushing out of the range of the aftermath of the Blood Fiend's abilities, Gray looked coldly at the blue-haired young man. The green river collided with the blue-haired young man, and he also rushed forward quickly. The blue-haired young man's expression changed. The Blood Fiend he was sitting on spewed out poisonous gas, and the young man himself was covered in flames. However, the power of the green river was obviously much stronger. The flames were extinguished, and the corrosive poisonous gas was worn out. The green river hit the blue-haired young man. Puff, puff, puff. Wounds appeared on the blue-haired young man and the blood fiend he was sitting on, and the ground was frozen by ice. At this moment, Gray and the purple blood fiend arrived. The purple blood fiend violently hit the blood fiend the blue-haired young man was sitting on, and Gray slashed at the blue-haired young man with his long sword. The blue-haired young man and the blood fiend both had deep wounds on their bodies, and they were sent flying backward. Gray and the purple blood fiend continued to pursue, preparing to kill the man and the beast. But at this moment, swoosh, 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 crackle, crackle, dozens of huge wind blades and barren giant trees attacked, blocking their path. Gray and the purple blood fiend had no choice but to stop. The green river shattered the wind blades and lightning. But at this moment, the blue-haired young man and the blood fiend had already broken free from the ice. However, their bodies were covered in wounds, and there was even a long scar on his handsome face, almost splitting his face in half. "You deserve to die." Touching the huge wound on his face, the blue-haired young man's face twisted. Although a scar was a man's metal, such a huge scar on his face had obviously disfigured him. He roared, and the long spear in his hand suddenly flashed with a beautiful light. Then, a huge orange flame pillar shot out from his long spear and attacked Gray. As a descendant of the Duke's family of the Flame Kingdom, he naturally had a powerful magic weapon in his hands. However, he did not use it immediately because activating such a magic weapon would consume too much of his blood energy. Especially in a battlefield like this, he had to maintain his blood energy at all times. But now he could not care so much. Because of his disfigurement, if he did not use his strongest combat power, he might die at the hands of his opponent. Whoosh! Seeing the huge flame pillar whizzing towards him, Gray's eyes narrowed, and the green river collided with it. Boom! An explosion that was much louder than the previous collision rang out. The green river exploded, and the huge pillar of flame was extinguished at the same time. A huge shockwave spread out in all directions, crashing into Gray and the purple blood fiend, forcing them to take a few steps back. The power of the second level of the barbarian level. This is a magic weapon at the peak of the bronze level. To be able to shatter the green river, the power of the flame pillar had obviously reached the second level of the barbarian level. This meant that the magic weapon in his opponent's hand must also be at the peak of the bronze level. In terms of destructive power, his opponent was not weaker than him. Before Gray and the purple blood fiend could catch their breaths, suddenly, whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. From the other side, a large number of plant spears appeared. Each spear was more than 10 meters long, and they whizzed towards Gray and the purple blood fiend. The purple blood fiend dodged in succession, and the plant spears fell to the ground one by one. Immediately, a huge crater appeared on the ground, as if a meteorite had crashed into it. Gravel flew in all directions like cannonballs. This was also an attack at the peak of the second level. Chapter 391. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. A green longsword in the gray-haired young man's hand was activated, emitting a bright green light. Within the green light, plant spears that were more than 10 meters long appeared. They whizzed through the air and pierced towards Gray and the purple blood fiend. The purple blood fiend carried Gray and dodged. The plant spears that were more than 10 meters long hit the ground. Boom! It was as if the green stone pillars had fallen from thousands of meters in the air. They crashed onto the ground with great destructive power, causing the earth to shake and rocks to fly everywhere. Deep pits appeared on the ground. There were more plant spears. There were more than 10 of them, covering a large area and attacking Gray and the purple blood fiend. Rumble! A green river appeared. It was like a long river that extended to the sky. It swept across the sky and crashed into the plant spears. After the violent collision, the plant spears were all shattered. The green river also collapsed. The second magic weapon at the peak of the bronze level. Gray stood on the purple blood fiend and retreated to avoid the aftershocks of the green river and the plant spears. His face was solemn. There was no doubt that the magic weapon in the gray-haired young man's hand was also a magic weapon at the peak of the bronze level that could unleash the power of a second-level barbarian. In other words, his next opponents would be 2 barbarian blood warriors and 2 barbarian blood fiends. Today is the day you die. The gray-haired young man stood on the blue and white lightning beast with a green magic sword in his hand. He locked his eyes on Gray with a murderous look. I want you dead. On the other side, the blue-haired young man with many wounds on his body and a hideous wound on his face stared at Gray with hatred. The spear in his hand was glowing. In the next moment, he attacked. A huge orange fire pillar formed a vortex of flames. It was like a meteor that streaked across the night sky. It was extremely hot. It attacked Gray as if it wanted to burn Gray to ashes. Just the aftershocks alone cracked the ground and charred the ground. Gray looked serious as he attacked. The green river appeared, and the ground around him was covered in ice. It carried the opposite force of the flame pillar and crashed into it. Poof! There wasn't a violent explosion as expected, and there wasn't even a loud sound. At the point where the green river and the yellow flame pillar came into contact, an unknown reaction seemed to occur, and they merged together. The green river and the pillar of flames disappeared, and a black mist appeared in the center of it. The black fog spread out in all directions and silently swept past a mountain rock that was lying horizontally. In an instant, the mountain rock was crushed and turned into ashes. It didn't explode due to intense damage, but rather it shattered into powder very evenly. Moreover, there were no violent fragments splashing in all directions. This scene caused Gray's pupils to shrink. He seemed to have grasped something in his mind. But before he had the time to examine what it was, he had no choice but to drive the purple blood beast to the side. Bang! The plant spear, which was more than 10 meters long, smashed into the spot where the purple blood fiend had been. Gravel flew everywhere, and a deep crater appeared in the ground. The impact forced Gray and the purple blood fiend to retreat. However, this was not the end. More and more plant spears were launched at Gray and the purple blood fiend. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. 3 plant spears were about to hit Gray. Gray didn't have time to use his ice and wind blade ability. He could only infuse lightning into the long sword in his hand and slash at the 3 plant spears. Boom! The lightning on the long sword exploded, and so did the 3 plant spears. With the strength of a special-level barbarian and the lightning ability of a special-level barbarian, the power of Gray's attack was comparable to that of 2 special-level barbarian blood warriors. However, such a powerful attack was only able to destroy 3 of the plant spears. One could imagine how powerful these plant spears were. If just 3 of them had such destructive power, what kind of destructive power would dozens of them have? Boom, boom, boom. The gray-haired young man controlled the plant spears with precision. Just as Gray destroyed a few plant spears, several more plant spears came at him, sealing off all escape routes. Gray had no choice but to defend himself. Gray was overwhelmed. Let's see how long you can last. The gray-haired young man sneered. The plant spears continued to attack Gray, not giving Gray any chance to recover. Of course, his blood energy was quickly depleting, but he believed that he would be able to kill his opponent in the end. After all, he was not alone. He looked in a certain direction and revealed a sinister smile. Whoosh! The next moment, from that direction, a huge, spinning flame pillar came at Gray. Gray and the purple blood fiend, who were held back by the plant spears, had no time to dodge and were engulfed by the huge flame pillar. Gray and the purple blood fiend were sent flying more than 100 meters away by the gigantic flame pillar. Along the way, the mountain rocks cracked and the soil was charred black. Before the 2 blood warriors could react, their bodies had already been set on fire. In the end, only 2 skeletons were left. More than 10 soldiers from the Flame Kingdom and the Purple Moon Kingdom were reduced to ashes before they could even scream. Although this attack was not as powerful as a Desolate Great attack, it was still extremely terrifying. The people from the Flame Kingdom and the Purple Moon Kingdom who were fighting nearby could not help but look over. Great! Great! Some of the people from the Flame Kingdom shouted excitedly. When Gray had unleashed his invincible power, many of them had died. Now that Gray had suffered such a terrifying flame attack, they could not help but shout excitedly. Not good. This is bad. Many of the people from the Purple Moon Kingdom were worried. After being hit by such raging flames, even if the person in the flames did not die, he would be severely injured. On the other hand, Earl Fergus, Zaloyang, Polly, and the others were not too worried. After witnessing the battle between Grey and the Blood Warriors, they knew how strong Grey's defense was. Naturally, they would not be worried about Grey suffering from such an attack. Bang! As the flames dissipated, Grey and the purple blood fiend collided with a huge mountain rock, causing it to shatter and fly everywhere. When the smoke and dust dispersed, the figures of Grey and the purple blood fiend were revealed. As expected, other than the fact that his clothes were almost tattered, there was not a single wound on Grey's body. What? How is this possible? Regardless of whether it was the people from the Purple Moon Kingdom or the Flame Kingdom, they were all shocked. Under such an attack, he was not injured. Impossible! The blue-haired and black-haired young men were also shocked. The destructive power of a level 2 barbarian could not hurt him. In their eyes, this was impossible, especially when they saw that the purple blood fiend was also unscathed. The two of them were even more shocked. Not only was he not injured, but even his blood fiend was unharmed. How'd he do it? Could it be that he had some kind of powerful defensive magic weapon? Chapter 392. Whoosh! Glancing at the blue-haired young man and the gray-haired young man, Grey's eyes flashed with a cold light. He jumped down from the purple blood fiend and pounced on the gray-haired young man. At the same time, the purple blood fiend pounced on the blue-haired young man, preparing to let the purple blood fiend block the blue-haired young man while he finished off the gray-haired young man. Seeing Grey and the purple blood fiend charging at them separately, the gray-haired and blue-haired young men were shocked, but they still made their moves. Boom! The blue-haired young man sent a pillar of fire at the purple blood fiend. The purple blood fiend tried to dodge, but it was not able to dodge completely. Half of its body was hit by the pillar of fire, and it slid dozens of meters away. However, as soon as the flames dissipated, the purple blood fiend got up again and pounced on the blue-haired young man. The blue-haired young man's face turned serious. He attacked the purple blood fiend again, not having the energy to deal with Grey for the time being. The gray-haired young man activated the green demonic sword in his hand and sent out more plant spears. However, Grey was prepared and blocked them with the green river. Boom! The green river and the plant spears both shattered, and the aftershocks splashed everywhere. Whoosh! When the green river and the plant spears collided and exploded, Grey did not dodge. Instead, he dashed toward the gray-haired young man. The aftershocks hit his body and made clanging sounds. He easily withstood the aftershocks of the explosion and quickly approached the gray-haired young man. Don't let him get close. Knowing that it would be dangerous for Grey, who had such a strong body, to get close to him, the black-haired young man ordered the black-scaled blood fiend to retreat. At the same time, he ordered the black-scaled blood fiend to spit out corrosive mist to attack Grey. Then, he activated the demonic sword and the plant spears to stop Grey from approaching. Whoosh! 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 The plant spears were like green stone pillars that fell from 1,000 meters in the sky, carrying a powerful destructive force. On the other side, the corrosive smoke was also sweeping toward Grey. Humph! Facing the corrosive smoke, Grey did not dodge. Instead, he withstood it with his strong defense. Then, his eyes flashed like lightning, and it seemed as if there were electric lights flashing around him. It wasn't as if, but a fact. A large amount of metal powder turned into sharp blades. The blades flickered with lightning as they collided with the plant spear. The hybrid ability of thunder, lightning, and metal was a blood fiend ability that was created by mixing two types of pure destructive abilities. It was currently the strongest hybrid ability that Grey had mastered. As soon as it appeared, it displayed a powerful destructive power. Under its destructive power, the plant spears shattered like rotten wood. Not only that, after destroying the plant spears, it changed direction and attacked the gray-haired young man. Poof, poof, poof. Although the gray-haired young man's combat power had reached the second level of the barbarian level due to his magic weapon, his defense had not reached the same level. Under the sharp blades wrapped in lightning, terrifying charred wounds appeared on his body one after another. Not only him, but even the blood fiend he was riding on was also wailing in grief. Charred wounds appeared on its body, and some of the wounds were so deep that bones could be seen. Whoosh! Gray rushed in front of the gray-haired young man and the black-scaled blood beast. The gray-haired young man endured the excruciating pain. A huge wind blade wrapped around his long sword and swept towards Gray. The black-scaled blood beast, on the other hand, swung its giant claw at Gray. Gray's long sword was wrapped in lightning, and he shattered the wind blade on the gray-haired young man's sword. He then continued forward, striking the gray-haired young man's body. The gray-haired young man was sent flying, and there was a deep, charred wound on his chest. Then, he threw out a punch to meet the black-scaled blood beast's giant claw. His body was less than 2 meters tall, which was much smaller than the 7-meter-tall black-scaled blood beast. It seemed that he would be easily killed by the black-scaled blood beast. But the reality was the opposite. Under his punch, the black-scaled blood beast's giant body was sent flying. Several of its claws were even broken, and the entire giant claw was trembling violently. He took a few steps forward and caught up with the black-scaled blood beast that had fallen to the ground. Yishiwen thrust his sword, which was wrapped in lightning, into a wound on the black-scaled blood beast's body, which was close to its heart. The black-scaled blood beast rolled around in pain and finally fell down powerlessly. Then, he took a few steps forward and came to the side of the gray-haired young man who was seriously injured. The gray-haired young man resisted with his sword, but his right arm was cut off by Gray. His hand holding the sword flew high into the air. Gray's eyes were full of killing intent. He swung his sword again and again, while the gray-haired young man rolled and dodged in embarrassment. Puff! A hideous charred wound appeared on the gray-haired young man's abdomen. Puff! A hideous charred scar appeared on the gray-haired young man's chest, crossing the previous scar. Puff! The gray-haired young man's head was hit by the sword, and his skull was almost smashed. Puff! Finally, the long sword struck his chest again. With a cracking sound, the gray-haired young man's ribs were all broken and his internal organs were minced by the long sword. How could I be defeated? The gray-haired young man's eyes were filled with unwillingness and hatred. His body fell down powerlessly. This was supposed to be a battle of revenge, but he didn't expect it to end like this. In just a year, he should have been able to kill his opponent easily. His strength had increased by more than a few times. Not only had he reached the barbarian realm, but his combat strength had also reached the second level of the barbarian realm. After killing the gray-haired young man, Gray looked coldly at the blue-haired young man. The latter's scalp went numb and his heart trembled. He had a peak bronze magic weapon in his hand, and his combat strength was comparable to the second level of the barbarian realm. His companion, who had been on the path of the barbarian realm for a longer time than him, had been killed. This result made him shudder in fear and disbelief. Whoosh! Gray's eyes were filled with killing intent as he chased after the blue-haired young man. Stop him! The blue-haired young man's face was pale. He ordered some of the Flame Kingdom's soldiers to stop Gray while he retreated as if he was avoiding a snake or a scorpion. He didn't have any intention to fight anymore. His companion had died. If he continued to fight, he would most likely be killed like his companion. Didn't you want me to die? Gray sneered. He killed the Flame Kingdom's soldiers one by one with his sword. He met up with the purple blood beast and quickly chased after the blue-haired young man. Suddenly, in the process of chasing after the blue-haired young man, a blood-stained figure flew over. Seeing this figure, Gray only hesitated for a moment before he reached out and held the figure, helping to reduce the impact of the impact. He recognized this person. This person was Gavin Kenneth of the Kenneth family. He was the strongest person in the younger generation of the 3rd Duke and 7th Marquis family. It was said that his combat strength had reached the second level of the barbarian realm. But even so, he was injured. He couldn't help but look in the direction that the man was flying from. In that direction, a young man wearing purple metal armor was walking over step by step. Chapter 393. It was a young man with blonde hair. His slightly curly blonde hair was like a burning sun, dazzling and eye-catching. Under the blonde hair was a chiseled face that looked like it was carved out of marble. His figure was tall and slender, and his back was ramrod straight, like a towering monument. A golden spear with dragons and snakes coiled around it was held in his hand. At this moment, there was a scorching golden flame burning on the spear. Along the way, corpses and ashes lay at his feet one after another. Those who attacked him were all burned to ashes by the golden flames on his spear. Cough, cough. Be careful. He's a desolate blood warrior. Gavin Kenneth said with a serious expression as he coughed out a mouthful of blood and swallowed a bottle of healing potion. He stood up straight with the support of his long sword. His strength had reached the second level of the barbarian level. Although his combat power had reached the desolate level with the help of his bronze peak magic weapon, he was still no match for Gavin after more than 10 exchanges. Let's work together. He made a serious request to Gray. A few days ago, he had watched the battle between Gray and the Nahum family's desolate blood warrior. He believed that even if he used his magic weapon, he would not have the confidence to defeat Gray. He knew how strong Gray was, and now that he had encountered a strong enemy, he made a request to Gray. If it was anyone else, even if they were also a barbarian blood warrior, he would not have made such a request. This was because when facing a desolate blood warrior, if a normal barbarian blood warrior were to get involved, it would be suicide. Okay, Gray agreed with a straight face. Although he had fought against the Nahum family's desolate blood warrior alone, he had not said something like, "Just let me do it," in a domineering manner. This was a battlefield. There was no need to pay attention to a fair one-on-one battle. For example, the gray-haired young man and the blue-haired young man had joined forces to attack him. Moreover, the blonde young man in front of him gave him an extremely dangerous feeling. Compared to the skinny old man from the Nahum family, he gave him a deeper sense of danger. "You actually killed Greg." The blonde young man glanced at the corpse of the gray-haired young man and then fixed his gaze on Gray. There was no killing intent in his eyes, no anger on his face, but Gray had the illusion that he was being stared at by a ferocious beast. "My name is Curtis Blaze, the first prince of the Flame Kingdom. Remember this name. This will be the last name you will hear in your life." The blonde young man glanced at Gray and Gavin Kenneth and said calmly, "First Prince." Hearing these words, Gray and Galen Kenneth narrowed their eyes. It was said that the current king of the Flame Kingdom had 2 sons and 1 daughter. Among them, the one with the best aptitude was the second prince, Niklos Blaze, who had already been designated as the crown prince of the Flame Kingdom. He did not expect the first prince, who was not as talented as the second prince, to have reached the desolate grade at such a young age. From this point, it was not hard to see how terrifying the second prince was. He was actually able to defeat the first prince, who was so talented, and become the crown prince of the Flame Kingdom. "You can all die now." "Kodak," Rage Flame said coldly. He raised the golden spear in his hand. The golden flames on the spear suddenly burst into flames and turned into a golden bird. It flew out of the spear and attacked Gray and Gavin. Swoosh! Gavin Kenneth let out a low roar. The long saber in his hand exploded with white cold air and turned into a tiger beast. With a terrifying power that could freeze everything, it met the incoming golden bird head-on. Swoosh! The tiger beast formed by the cold air and the bird formed by the flames collided. It was as if a real tiger beast and a real bird were fighting to the death. In the end, the tiger beast formed by the cold air collapsed. Although the flaming bird's body was almost destroyed, it still attacked Gray and Gavin. Gray made his move. A green river appeared and wrapped the flaming bird within. The flaming bird struggled violently in the green river, and terrifying waves appeared in the green river. In the end, the flaming bird and the green river were both destroyed. "Watch out!" Suddenly, a spear with golden flames suddenly appeared in front of Gray and Gavin Kenneth, thrusting the spear at them. Gavin Kenneth waved his saber and clashed with the spear. His body immediately retreated, and the spear shook and pierced towards Gray. Before it even got close, the blazing heat seemed to want to evaporate Gray. It was as if a scorching sun was attacking. Gray's expression was solemn. Lightning wrapped around his long sword, and he slashed at the flaming spear. At the same time, he commanded the purple blood beast to crash into Curtis Blaze like a thickened armored vehicle. Crack! Under the flaming spear, the lightning wrapped around Gray's long sword was immediately destroyed. The flaming spear pierced towards Gray's chest. Bang! Gray flew backwards, and his chest was hit by the terrifying golden flames. The corner of Curtis Blaze's mouth curled into a sneer. He did not even look at the outcome of the spear because he could already guess it. With a sweep of the spear, he sent the purple blood beast flying. Then, he raised the spear, and the flames on the spear surged. A bird flew out and attacked in Gavin Kenneth's direction. In that direction, there was also a tiger beast condensed from cold air coming towards him. Boom! The tiger beast condensed from frost collapsed, and the golden bird came crashing over. Gavin Kenneth rolled and dodged the golden bird in a sorry state. The ground where he was standing had already melted into lava. If he had dodged a little slower, he would have been seriously injured even if he didn't die. However, Gavin Kenneth's danger was not over yet. Curtis Blaze was already closing in. The spear wrapped in golden flames was like a golden dragon piercing towards Gavin Kenneth. The saber that was imbued with cold air slashed diagonally, deflecting the tip of the spear that was entwined with golden flames. Gavin Kenneth hurriedly retreated, but the next moment, the spear trembled and stabbed at him again. On the tip of the spear, golden flames burned fiercely. Those were golden flames that could severely injure a barbarian blood warrior. It seemed that Gavin Kenneth would not be able to dodge it. Suddenly, Curtis Blaze's spear stopped abruptly. Before it could pierce Gavin Kenneth, he abruptly retracted it and thrust it to the side. The flames on the tip of the spear suddenly surged and turned into a wall of flames. After that, the dense metal blades that were wrapped in lightning collided with the wall of flames. Then, the lightning was extinguished and the metal blades were melted into liquid. You're not dead, and you have this blood beast. With a shake of the spear, the flames surged and melted the last few dozen lightning metal blades into liquid. Curtis Blaze looked at Gray and the purple blood beast in surprise. At this moment, Gray's body was covered in a bronze color. His chest was pierced by the golden spear and burned by the golden flames. Other than some burns, there were no other injuries. As for the purple blood beast, there were only some dents in its scales where it was struck by the spear. This level of injury was only superficial. What a strong defense. You must have used this defense to drag Reg to death, right? Gray didn't answer. He commanded the purple blood beast to charge at Kodak Blaze while he teamed up with Gavin Kenneth. One of them used lightning metal to attack Kodak Blaze, while the other used Frost Tiger to attack Kodak Blaze. Curtis Blaze snorted coldly and stabbed his spear into the ground. A golden wall of flames appeared in front of him. Creak, creak. The lightning metal blades collided with the golden wall of flames and immediately turned into liquid. The Frost Hanhu collided with the golden wall of flames. After a violent ripple, it and the golden wall of flames were both destroyed. Boom! The terrifying explosion and the gravel stirred up by the explosion were far more powerful than cannonballs. The impact forced Curtis Blaze to retreat. At this moment, Gray, the purple blood beast, and Gavin Kenneth rushed in front of Robert Blaze. The two men and one beast attacked Gavin Kenneth at the same time. Robert Blaze swept his spear horizontally and collided with Gavin Kenneth's longsword. He blocked Gavin Kenneth's attack and then smashed the purple blood fiend behind him with the handle of his spear, sending it flying. When he was about to look for Gray, it was already too late. A 10-meter-long metal sword with lightning wrapped around it crashed into his body. A clear dent appeared on his purple armor. Although the armor's defense was strong, and because it was a magic weapon, it did not conduct electricity. However, a huge force still passed through the armor and into his body. He was forced to retreat. Boom, boom, boom. Gray, Gavin Kenneth, and the purple blood beast surrounded Curtis Blaze. The two men and one beast clashed continuously, causing terrifying sounds to ring out on the battlefield. This was a terrifying battle. The destructive power had reached the desolation level. The people from the two kingdoms who were involved in the battle were either turned into ashes, charred, or frozen into ice sculptures. The ferocious blood warriors would definitely die if they came into contact with it. Some of the berserk warriors who were slightly unlucky were also killed by the aftershocks. There was even a berserk blood warrior who was seriously injured by the aftershocks. Gavin Kenneth joined forces with someone and blocked Curtis Blaze, who has the strength of a ferocious blood warrior. Who is the one who joined forces with him? It's Gray Fergus, the noble child who once fought the Nahum family's ferocious blood warrior head-on. It's him. Such an intense battle naturally attracted a lot of attention. Many people's gazes were focused on this side. Some of the Purple Moon Kingdoms looked at Gavin Kenneth and Gray with reverence. Although the 2 men and 1 beast had joined forces to block a ferocious blood warrior, it was already very impressive to be able to block a ferocious blood warrior with such a small number of people. Although it was blocked by 2 men and 1 beast, it's still very impressive. Some of the ferocious blood warriors even looked over with a hint of surprise in their eyes. As ferocious blood warriors, they knew very well the difference between the barbarian level and the ferocious blood warrior. They were naturally very surprised that Gray and Gavin Kenneth could fight against the ferocious blood warriors. Chapter 394. Caduceus' raging flame roared in anger. As a desolate blood warrior, it was humiliating to be forced into such a predicament by 2 barbarian blood warriors. Golden flames gathered on his spear as he combined his physical abilities with his blood fiend's abilities. He then stabbed the purple blood fiend's head. Although the royal family of the Flame Kingdom did not have any corpse-controlling magic weapons, he had read about them in an ancient book from the Empire. He knew that only by smashing the blood fiend's head could the blood fiend be truly destroyed. Bang! The purple blood fiend was sent flying like a rolling rock. Its body tumbled a few times in the air before landing heavily on the ground. This was a terrifying attack formed by a desolate blood warrior, combining his blood fiend's abilities with his physical abilities. An ordinary barbarian-level blood fiend would definitely die under this attack, but not the purple blood fiend. The spear had only pierced a few centimeters into its head before it lost all strength. Given the 7-meter-long body of the purple blood fiend, such a depth was not enough to kill it. After sending the purple blood fiend flying, Caduceus' raging flame swept his spear to the side. There, Gray was holding a 10-meter-long metal sword that was entwined with lightning and was slashing at him. Golden flames were entwined on the spear. As it swept, it was like a golden blade that annihilated the lightning and cut the metal sword in half. Then, it slashed at Gray's body. Gray retreated as a scorch mark appeared on his body. Like the purple blood fiend, it was not a serious injury. At this moment, a tiger formed by white cold air charged at Caduceus' raging flame. Caduceus' raging flame hurriedly raised his spear to block, but he was unable to block it completely. His body was instantly frozen, and he was sent flying. Flames burst forth from the spear as Caduceus' raging flame rushed out of the ice. His golden hair was as dazzling as the sun, but because of the fierce battle, it was extremely messy. At this moment, Gray, the purple blood fiend, and Gavin Kenneth charged at him again and engaged him in battle once more. This was a terrifying collision. The sound was deafening as soil and rocks flew everywhere. Under the terrifyingly high temperature, the soil and rocks melted, turning into magma. However, at the next moment, cold air swept past, and the magma completely solidified, turning into lava. Then, a sharp metal blade slashed past, turning the lava into crushed rocks. Every piece of rock that flew out from the place where they fought had the power of a cannonball. Several soldiers of the Kingdom of Fire were hit by the rocks and exploded into a rain of blood. A ferocious warrior from the Purple Moon Kingdom was struck by a lightning blade, and a hole appeared on his body. His eyes were wide open as he fell to the ground. A dozen or so cavalrymen from the Flame Kingdom and the Purple Moon Kingdom that appeared at the edge of the battle were swept by the cold air and turned into ice sculptures. Then, with a cracking sound, they shattered onto the ground. Bang! After being slashed in the chest by the huge thunder metal longsword, A deep dent appeared on Kedic Blaze's armor, and he flew back heavily. 2 fists were no match for 4 hands. This was the most realistic portrayal of Curtis Blaze at this moment. Since Gavin Kenneth was able to possess a pinnacle bronze magic weapon, it was only natural for him to possess one as well. The spear in his hand was such a weapon. However, although pinnacle bronze magic weapons could still increase his combat power at the Desolate level, it was not as great as when he was at the Barbarian level. It could not allow his combat power to jump from the first level of the Desolate level to the second level of the Desolate level, unless he had a silver grade magic weapon. However, magic weapons of that grade were usually the standard equipment of king-level masters. Even the Prince of the Flame Kingdom did not have one. I have to kill one of them first. Otherwise, if this continues, I will definitely lose. Looking at the sharp blade marks on the metal armor, some of which had even pierced through the metal armor and wounded him, Codicus Rageflame's heart trembled, a look of determination flashing through his eyes. Whoosh! He turned into a ray of light and rushed towards Gavin Kenneth. However, Gavin Kenneth did not want to fight him head-on. He slashed out with his sword, and white cold air filled the air. A tiger condensed from cold air rushed towards him while Gavin Kenneth himself retreated. Facing this desolate level frost tiger beast, he did not dare to be careless. The flames on his spear surged, and like a falling meteor, it pierced into the frost tiger beast's body, causing it to explode. The exploded frost tiger beast released a dense frost chi, causing the surrounding area to be filled with frost chi. The surrounding ground was covered in ice. He took a few steps back to avoid the spreading frost chi. Just as he was about to look for Gavin Kenneth again, a huge purple blood beast slammed down with its millstone-sized claws. On the other side, Gray swung a metal greatsword that was more than 10 meters long. It was surrounded by lightning as it slashed towards Kedic Blaze. The scene that had happened many times before was happening again. Gray and the purple blood beast had strong defense. Even if they were hit by a desolate level attack, they would be able to withstand it. Therefore, they attacked from a distance. Gavin Kenneth's attack was strong, but his defense was weak. At this moment, a fierce look suddenly appeared in his eyes. He did not dodge the purple blood beast's claws. He allowed the claws to hit his metal armor, leaving 3 deep scratches on it. Kedic Blaze used the force of the attack to slide towards Gray. The killing intent in his eyes was like the cold air of winter, enveloping Gray completely. Be careful! Gavin Kenneth sensed that something was wrong and warned Gray loudly. At the same time, he slashed out a turbulent cold air towards Kedic Blaze. He wanted to stop Kedic Blaze before he could make his move. However, it was already too late. Whoosh! Kedic Blaze locked his gaze on Gray. The golden flames on the spear in his hand surged. It did not turn into a golden bird and fly out. Instead, it spread downwards, almost completely enveloping the front half of the golden spear. It circled around it, making the entire spear look like a golden dragon's claw. The spear exuded an unparalleled aura of destruction. It was as if a destructive behemoth had been awakened. As the spear pierced out, the destructive behemoth also crawled out of the cave. The terrifying aura of destruction rushed towards Gray. Before the destructive flames even got close, Gray's clothes were already burning. The power of this spear had exceeded the first level of the Desolate level. It had even exceeded the second level of the Desolate level. Boom! The spear with destructive power pierced straight towards Gray's heart. The sense of danger was like an awl attached to his bones. Gray's hair stood on end, and he dodged to the side. He felt that even with his current defense, it would be extremely dangerous if he was pierced by this spear. However, the spear was too fast. Although Gray had avoided his heart, he was still pierced by the spear in the right chest. Poof! The spear wrapped in flames was like a red-hot soldering iron. It easily pierced Gray's body, almost piercing through Gray's body. The terrifying flames burned, turning the flesh near the wound into charcoal. Gray's body flew backward, as if he had been hit by a train. More than 10 soldiers from the Flame Kingdom and the Purple Moon Kingdom who were fighting were directly smashed into a bloody pulp. After flying for more than 100 meters, Gray fell to the ground with a thud. A burnt smell was emitted from his body. Just two people and a beast were able to force Big Brother to use his incomplete blood skill. The Purple Moon Kingdom is not as weak as we thought. Not far from where Gray and the others were fighting, a man and a beast were fighting. Both parties had desolate-level destructive power. The man was Niklos Blaze, while the other man and beast were Francis Violet and a desolate-level blood beast. Even when facing the joint forces of Francis Violet and a desolate-level blood fiend, Niklos Blaze still had the upper hand. He couldn't help but be slightly surprised when he saw Kodak Blaze actually using an incomplete blood skill. At the barbarian and desolate levels, the power of blood was extremely abundant. There was no need to use the blood beast's ability anymore. Due to the huge consumption of the power of blood, they could unleash their full power with every attack. The reason why Kodak Blaze could suddenly unleash a level 2 desolate-level destructive power was because he had used the incomplete blood skill he had obtained from the Empire's ruins. Blood skill was a method of using the power of blood that corresponded to blood techniques. Through the special use of the power of blood, the blood beast's ability could be increased by several times or even dozens of times. It was a battle skill of blood warriors. However, such blood skills were extremely rare during the Empire's era. They were almost extinct during the Four Kingdoms era. Only a few top forces still possessed incomplete blood skills. The royal family of the Flame Kingdom was one of them. As an incomplete blood skill, it naturally had side effects. Not only did it consume a huge amount of power of blood, but it would also cause damage to the body. Normally, it would not be used easily. To be able to force Kodak Blaze to use it, one could only imagine the predicament that Gray and Gavin Kenneth had forced Kodak Blaze into. Don't die so easily. On the other side, Sophia was fighting with a barbarian blood warrior from the Flame Kingdom. Her figure was as swift as lightning, and the barbarian blood warrior from the Flame Kingdom couldn't even touch her shadow. The long spear in her hand pierced the barbarian blood warrior's chest several times. Finally, the spear pierced through his heart. She looked at Gray, who was flying backward. She raised her eyebrows and frowned slightly. Not good. Gavin Kenneth's expression changed when he saw Gray flying backward. His heart sank. He was very clear about the power of that attack. Even with Gray's defense, he would have been seriously injured or even killed by that attack. You should be proud to be able to force me to this extent. Kodak Blaze's face was slightly pale. Some of his internal organs and muscles had ruptured with wounds. Those were the injuries caused by using an incomplete blood skill. At this moment, the purple blood beast pounced toward him with bared fangs and brandished claws. He's not dead yet. After sending the purple blood beast flying with a single spear strike, Kodak Blaze looked in the direction where Gray had been sent flying with great surprise in his eyes. The purple blood beast had not lost its ability to move. This meant that Gray had not been killed by his spear. Sure enough, Gray stood up with his long sword in that direction. The right side of his chest was char-black, and the wound was so deep that his bones could be seen. This was an unimaginably serious injury. If it had been an ordinary person, they would have died from such an injury. However, as a barbarian blood warrior, his vitality was naturally extremely strong. Hence, Gray did not die immediately. Even so, the situation was extremely bad. At this moment, he was like a tree that had been struck by lightning. He could live like a withered tree in spring, but he could also die. So what if he's still alive? Do you think he still has the strength to fight in this state? Kodak Blaze was shocked at first, but then he heaved a sigh of relief. With such a serious injury, it was impossible for him to continue fighting. It was already difficult for him to stand, let alone fight. Moreover, with his opponent's terrible condition, he did not even need to do anything. Any barbarian blood warrior would be able to kill him. Die. There was no need for him to give the order. Seeing that Gray, who they did not dare to approach, was seriously injured and on the verge of death, a barbarian blood warrior from the Flame Kingdom roared and rushed toward Gray with a battle axe in his hand. Chapter 395. This was a barbarian blood warrior with a lightning attribute blood beast ability. He had a big face, a full beard, and a fierce look in his eyes. Crackle. A sinister smile flashed across his face. Blue lightning wrapped around his battle axe, making it look like the thunder god's axe. He swung his axe at the wound on Gray's right chest. Under his axe, the air was torn apart like a piece of cloth. Oomph! Gray coldly snorted. Although he was seriously injured, he wasn't someone an ordinary barbarian blood warrior could bully. Leaning his long sword on the ground, he stood still. A long green river suddenly appeared, as if it had rushed out of the river of time and space, and crashed toward the flame kingdom barbarian blood warrior. A terrifying cold air filled the air, and sharp wind blades flickered. Wounds bloomed on the body of the flame kingdom barbarian blood warrior. His flesh was even cut off in many places. The terrifying coldness froze him. He was like a person who had fallen into water. He was wrapped in the green river and sent flying. After landing on the ground, he couldn't break free from the ice on his body for a long time. His injuries weren't light. He still has combat power. A barbarian blood warrior was actually injured by Gray so easily. Some of the Flame Kingdom blood warriors who wanted to pounce over couldn't help but stop in their tracks. Although the opponent was seriously injured, his combat power was still strong. If a barbarian blood warrior was injured in one blow, then wouldn't they, who were weaker than the barbarian blood warriors, be killed in one blow? Whoosh! Enduring the pain, Gray attacked with a mixture of ice and wind blades to intimidate the approaching blood warriors of the Flame Kingdom. He quickly used his reverse nurturing ability. Although this was a plain, it didn't mean that there weren't any plants here. Rather, there were a lot of plants, but most of them were short weeds and shrubs. Thus, he could still use his reverse nurturing ability. Whoosh! With Gray as the center, a large amount of green light was drawn from the weeds and shrubs within a 100-meter radius. A large amount of the weeds and shrubs withered. All the green light gathered toward Gray, and finally wrapped Gray into a green cocoon of light. The injuries on Gray's body, especially on the right side of his chest, were quickly recovering. The charred flesh fell from the body, and new flesh grew from the inside, quickly filling up the wound. Not good. He has a precious healing magic weapon on him. His injuries are recovering. Whether it was the large amount of green light or the injuries on Gray's chest that were quickly recovering, all of the Flame Kingdom blood warriors' expressions changed. Attack! The 3 barbarian blood warriors of the Kingdom of Flames temporarily broke away from their opponents and surrounded Gray. One of them turned the water into a sharp blade that was several meters long and slashed at Gray. Another person wanted to control the plants to attack Gray, but he found that the plants around him had all died. He could only use his blood power to activate the sword-shaped weapon in his hand. A sharp wind blade covered the weapon as he pounced towards Gray. The last person's flames turned into a huge fireball and crashed towards Gray. Bang! The sharp blades formed by the water came attacking. Gray swept out with his long sword and instantly destroyed them, turning them back into ordinary water. Gray then changed the direction of his sword and swung it horizontally, blocking the blade that was slashing at him and forcing the person holding the blade to retreat. When he was about to dodge the fireball, it was already too late. The huge fireball had already hit his body. Boom! The green light surrounding his body was scattered by the fireball. He was submerged in the huge fireball, and he slid away along with the fireball. You're courting death. The fireball dissipated, revealing Gray's figure. His injuries were not aggravated, but his reverse nurturing ability had been interrupted. This made him quite angry. He coldly looked at the barbarian blood warrior of the Kingdom of Raging Flame who had cast a fireball. Whoosh! The Cyan River appeared and attacked the barbarian blood warriors of the Raging Flame Kingdom. The Flame Kingdom blood warrior dodged, but the speed of the Green River was too fast. He had only taken a few steps when he was surrounded by the Green River. Ah! The sharp wind blade cut his body like a razor. Wounds appeared on his body, and each wound was deep into his skin. In some places, even his flesh had been cut off, and in some places his bones could be seen. After injuring the barbarian blood warrior from the Raging Flames Kingdom who had used the fireball, Gray didn't stop there. Metal blades of lightning appeared around him and split into 2, attacking the other two barbarian blood warriors from the Raging Flames Kingdom. As expected, the two of them were covered in blades, and their wounds were charred black. They retreated. Then he looked around coldly, looking for the people who wanted to attack him. Those who were swept by his gaze all had a change in expression, and they took a few big steps back. "Come at me if you want to die." He used his reverse nurturing ability again, and the green light gathered around him again. He turned into a huge green light ball again. Although the reverse nurturing ability was interrupted, at his current level, his blood energy was extremely abundant, and he could use the reverse nurturing ability many times. Shrouded in the green light, he walked toward the place where Kedic Flame and Gavin Kenneth were fighting. Along the way, the Flame Kingdom's soldiers, cavalry, and blood warriors all retreated with fear in their eyes. The four blood warriors' experience made them realize that although Gray was seriously injured, it did not mean that he could not fight. Without Gray's support, Gavin Kenneth was clearly at a disadvantage. His abdomen, back, and thighs were scratched by the tip of Kedic Flame's spear. Scorch marks appeared, and he couldn't help but draw in a cold breath. Fortunately, Gray did not summon the purple blood beast to protect him, giving him some time to breathe. He would not be killed by Kedic Flame in a short time. Pa. Gray walked to the place where the two were fighting. The green light disappeared, and his injuries were completely healed. He actually has a rare healing magic weapon on him. Kedic Flame looked solemnly at Gray, who had recovered. A healing magic weapon did not have any attack power, but its value was several times, or even more than 10 times that of a magic weapon of the same level. It was extremely precious, and even he did not have one. He did not expect Gavin to have one, and judging by the speed of his recovery, the self-healing magic weapon he had must be of an extremely high level. I also did not expect you to have a blood skill. Gray took out some clothes and put them on to prevent the clothes from covering his body. Gray looked at Codicus Blaze with a similarly serious gaze. He didn't expect the other party to have mastered a blood skill that only existed during the Empire's era. The four great kingdoms do not have a complete blood skill. His blood skill should be incomplete, and he should not be able to use it anymore. Seeing that Gray's injuries had recovered, Gavin Kenneth sighed in relief and explained to Gray. "That's good." Gray nodded. The blood skill was too dangerous. The battle power that erupted in an instant had actually raised the opponent's battle power to at least level 2 desolate level. This time, although he managed to avoid being hit in the vitals at the cost of being seriously injured, he might not be so lucky next time and be able to avoid being hit in the vitals. Since his opponent could no longer use his blood skill, the threat was naturally removed. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. There was nothing to say. This was a battlefield where one side would fight to the death. Gray, the purple blood fiend, and Gavin Kenneth once again pounced on Kedic Flame, and a violent battle erupted between them once again. Swoosh! Holding a 10-meter-long, lightning metal greatsword that didn't match his body at all, Gray swept his sword towards Codica's raging flames. Under his sword, a hurricane swept up in the surroundings. Kedic Flame could not dodge in time, as he was blocked by the purple blood fiend and Gavin Kenneth, and was hit in the abdomen by the sword. The metal armor on his body, which had been damaged in many places, suddenly burst open. The violent lightning sword left a charred mark on his abdomen, and he could not help but fly backwards. Bang, bang, bang. A Flame Kingdom soldier and 2 Purple Moon Kingdom soldiers were hit by him as he flew backwards. They exploded like eggs, and blood splattered all over the ground. Cough, cough. Kedic Flame supported himself with his spear and stood up from the ground. At this moment, he was covered in blood. Even his dazzling golden hair and face were stained with blood. Apart from the charred wound on his abdomen, there were wounds all over his body. He looked extremely miserable. Whoosh, whoosh. Without giving Kedic Flame any chance to catch his breath, Gray and Gavin Kenneth quickly rushed forward. Bang! Kedic Flame thrust his spear, and a golden flame bird flew out, blocking Gray and Gavin Kenneth. However, it was sent flying by the purple blood fiend's horn. Gray and Gavin Kenneth's eyes were filled with murderous intent. One wielding a sword and the other a sword, they quickly approached. Roar! Suddenly, a shrill scream rang out. The sound was filled with sorrow. Gray and Gavin Kenneth were shocked. They looked in the direction of the sound, and then their expressions changed drastically. A huge charred hole appeared where an old man's heart was, and his body fell straight down. Not far from him, there was an 8-meter-long blood beast covered in fiery red scales. Its eyes had been pierced by a long spear. More than half of the spear had penetrated deeply into the brain of the red-scaled blood beast. The red-scaled blood fiend let out a painful cry. Its huge body kept rolling on the ground. Rocks and soil flew as it rolled, and the people fighting around it all retreated. Then, the red-scaled blood fiend's rolling body suddenly went limp. It landed heavily on the ground, kicking up a cloud of dust. There was no more sound. Blood and traces of white substance seeped out of its mouth. That was blood and damaged brain tissue. A desolate blood warrior of the royal family and his desolate-level blood fiend were killed. Gray and Gavin Kenneth recognized this man and beast. They were one of the 6 pairs of desolate-level blood fiends and desolate blood warriors of the royal family. Now, they had been killed. This was the first death of a desolate-level combatant on this battlefield. Originally, the Purple Moon Kingdom's desolate-level combatants were weaker by a few. They were completely relying on the Tier 2 barbaric blood warriors like Gray and the rest to temporarily maintain the balance. Now that a desolate blood warrior and a desolate-level blood fiend were dead, the Purple Moon Kingdom was at a disadvantage. Just you wait, you're all going to die. There was blood at the corner of his mouth, and his injuries were not light. However, Curtis Blaze sneered. The desolate-level combatants of the Purple Moon Kingdom's coalition forces were not as strong as the Flame Kingdom's coalition forces. Now that they had lost a desolate blood warrior and a desolate-level blood fiend, he could almost see the Flame Kingdom's coalition forces wiping out the Purple Moon Kingdom's coalition forces. Chapter 396. Your Highness, I'm here to support you. After killing the wild blood warriors and the desolate-level blood fiends of the Purple Moon Kingdom, one of the 2 wild blood warriors from the Flame Kingdom rode his desolate-level blood fiend and charged toward Gray and the others. Looks like there's no need to wait anymore. You're all going to die soon. The sneer on Codicus Blaze's face deepened. He was confident that he could defeat Gray and Gavin Kenneth even if any other desolate-level combatant joined the fray, let alone a wild blood warrior and a desolate-level blood fiend. 2 desolate-level combatants joined the fray. This is bad. Gray and Gavin Kenneth looked at each other. They could see the seriousness in each other's eyes. Even if they were confident in their own abilities, they did not think that they could defeat 2 wild blood warriors and a desolate-level blood fiend. Gray was slightly better. His defense was strong, and he had the ability to heal quickly. It would be difficult to kill him in a short period of time. On the other hand, although Gavin Kenneth relied on the magic weapon in his hand to possess desolate-level combat power, his defense was not at the same level. He would be severely injured if he was hit by a desolate-level attack. Thump! 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 Suddenly, a sound that sounded like a landslide or a tsunami came from afar. In the distant plains, a torrent was rushing over. It was majestic, and the sound shook the surroundings. It was not a flood, but an army numbering in the tens of thousands. Roar! At the front of the army, the blood fiends roared. They were ferocious-looking blood fiends. There were ferocious-level blood fiends that were 3 meters long. There were berserk-level blood fiends that were 4 meters long. There were barbaric-level blood fiends that were 6 to 7 meters long. There were even desolate-level blood fiends that were 8 to 9 meters tall. The army came from the rear of the Flame Kingdom's army. With the blood fiends as the vanguard, they stabbed into the rear of the Flame Kingdom's army like a sharp blade. Thump! 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 The Flame Kingdom's soldiers and cavalrymen were either hit by the blood fiends or sent flying backward with broken bones, or they were trampled into meat paste under the feet of the blood fiends. Wherever this army passed, the ground was filled with corpses. All of them were trampled beyond recognition and turned into minced meat. The ground was completely dyed red, and the pungent smell of blood filled the air. Looking from afar, a red carpet was formed under their feet. Not good. The expressions of the desolate blood warriors who were preparing to charge towards Gray's side changed. They changed their direction and charged towards the army that was charging towards them from behind. They no longer cared about supporting Curtis Blaze. Kill, kill, kill. War cries filled the air as blood splattered everywhere. Lives were withering as the Flame Kingdom's allied army suffered heavy losses. The sudden appearance of the army from the rear threw the Flame Kingdom Alliance army into chaos. In an instant, they were attacked from both sides. In the chaos, many people were killed because of their mistakes. The morale of the Purple Moon Kingdom side was greatly boosted. Their exhausted bodies seemed to be filled with vitality again. Moreover, the Purple Moon Kingdom was no longer at a disadvantage against the desolate Grade forces. The tables had turned. Do you really think that the Flame Kingdom doesn't know that the Purple Moon Kingdom Alliance army still has hidden forces? The situation was very good for the Purple Moon Kingdom, but at this moment, Kodak Blaze revealed a disdainful smile. Dong, dong, dong. Suddenly, the Thunder Buddha City's city gate opened. A large number of troops rushed out from the city gate like rolling dark clouds. They continued to pour out, and eventually, the number of troops reached tens of thousands. Among them, horses neighed, blood beasts roared, and there was no lack of desolate Grade blood beasts. The Flame Kingdom Alliance army actually had another army in the city. Kill, kill, kill. This was an army of tigers and bears. Their murderous aura was so dense that it was like a dark cloud. They charged in from the rear of the Purple Moon Kingdom's reinforcements and attacked the Purple Moon Kingdom's reinforcements. Wherever they passed, the Purple Moon Kingdom's reinforcements would have their blood splattered. Their heads rolled, and the ground was dyed red with blood. How does it feel to fall from heaven to hell? Curtis Blaze sneered and looked at Gray and Gavin Kenneth. The hope that had just been ignited was immediately extinguished. He could already imagine how interesting Gray and Gavin Kenneth's expressions would be at this moment. He had suffered a great loss under the joint attack of Gray and Gavin Kenneth. He had a sense of grievance and anger in his heart, and now he could finally release it. However, to his surprise, he didn't see any disappointment on Gray and Gavin Kenneth's faces. This wasn't because he had great control over his emotions and forcibly stopped himself from feeling disappointed. If that was the case, his expression would definitely be rather stiff. However, the truth was the exact opposite. His expression was very natural, but it wasn't an expression of disappointment. This should be the full strength of the Flame Kingdom's Alliance army, right? Gray looked at Codicus Blaze with a smile that wasn't a smile. He didn't participate in the high-level meeting, so he didn't know how the higher-ups arranged the battle strategy. However, he could roughly guess the strategy by now. So what if it is? Do you think the Purple Moon Kingdom still has reinforcements? Seeing Gray's expression, Curtis Blaze suddenly had a bad feeling. Just as he was about to remind the Flame Kingdom's Alliance army to be on guard, at this moment, thump, 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 the sound of stormy waves appeared from the distant horizon again. It was as if a huge river had changed its direction and was surging towards them. The rumbling sound came from afar, like the beating of war drums. Looking at the rapidly approaching river, the Flame Kingdom's soldiers, cavalrymen, and nobles couldn't help but feel numb. Another Purple Moon Kingdom's reinforcements. The Purple Moon Kingdom actually has another army. The Flame Kingdom's soldiers, cavalrymen, and even nobles couldn't help but panic. Even if some of them were calm and wanted to change direction to meet the incoming army, it was already too late. The Purple Moon Kingdom's second reinforcements rushed into the Flame Kingdom's reinforcements like a raging river, causing the Flame Kingdom's reinforcements to be attacked from the front and back. Screams sounded one after another. The Flame Kingdom's soldiers and cavalrymen who were attacked from the front and back didn't even have time to react before they were killed by the attacks from the back. There were enemies in front and behind. It was as if they were swept into a vast ocean. They didn't know where the path was or where to run to return to land. Screams and screams sounded one after another. Lives were withering, even worse than weeds. Blood stained the plains, and a thick smell of blood filled the air. Because of the attack from the front, The Flame Kingdom's soldiers and cavalrymen who died were obviously more than the Purple Moon Kingdom's. Your Highness, how does it feel to fall from heaven to hell? Gray looked at Kotick Flame with a playful expression and then repeated his words. Your Highness, it seems like the one who will die here today is you. Gavin Kenneth also said with a cold smile. There's still another army. Kotick Flame's face was ashen. He was in heaven a moment ago, and the next moment, he fell into hell. That was his current mood. Your Highness, let us send you on your way. Gray and Gavin Kenneth laughed sinisterly. The killing intent in their eyes was like the cold air of winter. They locked onto Kotick Flame, and together with the purple blood beast, they pounced towards Kotick Flame. Pooh! Kotick Flame's back was slashed by Gavin Kenneth's blade, and his entire body was instantly frozen. Slash! The purple blood beast clawed at Kotick Flame's arm and immediately left several wounds. Bang! Gray slapped down with his lightning metal greatsword, and Kotick Flame flew backwards as if he had been hit by a train. Bastard! The number of wounds on Kotick Flame's body continued to increase. He roared angrily and viciously stabbed his spear at Gray. As a desolate blood warrior, he had been defeated by 2 barbarian blood warriors. To him, this was a great humiliation. Gray was sent flying by his spear, but immediately Gavin Kenneth and the purple blood beast pounced on him again. Gray, who was not seriously injured, also got up and pounced again. Ugh! With a painful cry, a huge, desolate-level blood beast fell down like a collapsed mountain, covered in blood. This was not a desolate-level blood beast from the Purple Moon Kingdom, but a desolate-level blood beast from the Flame Kingdom. Under the joint attack of a desolate blood warrior from the Nahum family and a desolate-level blood beast, this desolate-level blood beast was killed. An old desolate blood warrior from the Flame Kingdom was killed by 2 desolate blood warriors from the Addison family. Retreat, break through to the east. Under the situation of being attacked from the front and back, the Flame Kingdom suffered heavy losses. Miserable cries sounded one after another, and the Flame Kingdom had no choice but to temporarily retreat. Under the siege of Gray and Gavin Kenneth, Curtis Flame was already seriously injured and in a perilous situation. When he heard the order to retreat, his eyes lit up as if he had completely recovered from his injuries, and he broke out of the encirclement towards the east. Stay! Naturally, Gray and Gavin Kenneth wouldn't allow him to escape. They chased after him. However, neither the two of them nor the purple blood beast were faster than Kotick Inferno. The distance between them and Kotick Inferno was gradually widening. You 2 desolate blood warriors want to stop me? Kotick Flame sneered disdainfully and continued to charge forward without slowing down. Because of the full burst of speed, many of the wounds on his body were bleeding. He frowned because of the pain, but he did not stop. Compared to running for his life, the aggravation of his injuries was naturally nothing. Suddenly, in front of him, a huge pillar of lightning appeared. It was as bright as the aurora in the sky, without the slightest trace of smoke or fire. However, his expression changed. This was a desolate-level attack. He paused slightly and thrust out his spear. On the spear, there was a golden flaming bird that flew towards the lightning. Boom! With a loud explosion, lightning and flames splashed everywhere. He dodged to the side and broke through in that direction. Your Highness, why are you in such a hurry? But at this time, he found that an old man had appeared in front of him. The old man smiled and blocked his path. This was a desolate blood warrior from the Addison family. Chapter 397. Damn it. Looking at the old man blocking his way, Codicus Blaze's face turned gloomy. He turned around and was about to change directions, but at this moment, Gray, Gavin Kenneth, and the purple blood beast arrived. They spread out and blocked all directions. Your Highness, who do you think will die now? Gavin Kenneth said with a playful tone. If I don't die this time, I'll make you wish you were dead. Codicus Blaze's face was so gloomy that it could drip water. He didn't beg for mercy because he knew it was useless. He glanced at Gray and Gavin Kenneth with hatred, his voice cold as if he was a ghost from hell. Your Highness, who do you think can save you? Gavin Kenneth sneered at this threat. Facing a desolate blood warrior and 2 of them who could fight a desolate blood warrior head-on. It was impossible for the other party to escape. As for the other desolate blood warriors of the Flame Kingdom, they couldn't even take care of themselves and had no spare energy to save the other party. I'll send you on your way. Although they didn't think the other party could escape, Gray and Gavin Kenneth didn't have any intention of delaying. They attacked Codicus Blaze together, and so did the desolate blood warriors of the Addison family. Bang! Under the impact of Gavin Kenneth's Frost Tiger Beast, Codicus Blaze was frozen into an ice sculpture. As soon as he broke free from the ice, Gray attacked. A large number of electric metal blades turned into a purple dragon and attacked him. Although he tried his best to block with his spear, his body was still pierced by dozens of metal blades. He was in so much pain that he gritted his teeth and retreated. A desolate blood warrior of the Addison family appeared, holding a 2-meter-long giant sword in his hand. Lightning surged on it like a dazzling purple sun. He slashed at Codicus Blaze's throat. This was a strike that was enough to kill Curtis Blaze. Codicus Blaze's expression changed. He raised his spear to block, but because it was too hasty, it seemed that it was too late. If nothing unexpected happened, the long blade should first cut through Codicus Blaze's neck before he raised his spear. The elder of the Addison family snorted. Being able to kill a prince of the Flame Kingdom was a great achievement. Be careful. Suddenly, Gray and Gavin Kenneth's expressions changed. They couldn't help but loudly warn the Addison family elder. Behind the old man of the Addison family, a golden light was approaching him at high speed. It was a person holding a spear that was moving quickly. The reason why it looked golden was because there was a dazzling golden flame on his spear. Gray and Gavin Kenneth's warning alerted the elder of the Addison family. He gave up on slashing at Curtis Blaze with his lightning-wrapped longsword and turned around to slash behind him. Clang! The long saber blocked the spear that was coming from behind, wrapped in golden flames. However, the power of the golden flame spear was beyond imagination. It actually deflected the long saber and drove straight in. Puff! The long spear pierced into the elder's abdomen, causing him to back out as if he had been struck by lightning. All of his clothes had been burned into ashes, and a serious burnt mark had appeared on his abdomen. This was a terrifying spear strike. With just one strike, it had knocked away the Addison family elder's saber and wounded him. Nicholas Blaze. The owner of the long spear was a young man who was even younger than Curtis Blaze. He also had dazzling golden hair. This was the second prince of the Flame Kingdom, Nicholas Blaze. As expected of the crown prince of the Flame Kingdom, his talent was extremely terrifying. Just from this spear strike, it wasn't hard to see that his battle power was above Curtis Blaze. Just you wait. I will make you wish you were dead. Codicus Blaze heaved a sigh of relief when he saw Nicholas Blaze's arrival. He looked at Gray and Gavin Kenneth and said with a cold look in his eyes. From his words, it wasn't hard to feel that Nicholas Blaze had given him a lot of confidence that he would be able to break out of the encirclement. Nicholas Blaze didn't rush to break out of the encirclement. Standing beside Curtis Blaze, he calmly glanced over. You should be Gavin Kenneth of the Kenneth family. His gaze first fell on Gavin Kenneth. Although this was the first time he had seen Gavin Kenneth, the Flame Kingdom must have already had information on Gavin Kenneth, so he recognized Gavin Kenneth. Then his gaze fell on Gray, and he said with a trace of surprise on his face, I was wrong. I misjudged you back then. I didn't expect you to grow to this level in just over a year. He looked at Gray with admiration in his eyes, but it made Gray's hair stand on end, as if he was being stared at by a ferocious beast. Your name? He looked at Gray with great interest and asked. Gray Fergus. Gray calmly said, feeling a little creeped out by the other party's stare, but he wouldn't get stage fright. Gray Fergus. I will remember this name. Thump, thump, thump. There was a huge commotion, and a desolate blood warrior ran over while standing on a desolate level blood beast. The newcomer had a head of purple hair, a heroic spirit between his eyebrows, and a tall and straight figure. It was the prince of the Purple Moon Kingdom, Francis Violet. Seeing that it was Francis Violet, Gray and the others breathed a sigh of relief. Nicholas Blaze had given them too much pressure, and now that Francis Violet had arrived, they could finally breathe a sigh of relief. Niklos, you still dare to stay here? You are too arrogant. Francis Violet stared coldly at Niklos Blaze. No one can stop me if I want to leave. Niklos Blaze said calmly. There was no frivolity, nor was there any fear in his voice. It was as if he was stating a fact. The victory of this battle belongs to the Purple Moon Kingdom. But remember, this is only the beginning. Turning around, Niklos Blaze took Kodak Blaze and broke out of the encirclement to the east. Golden flames wrapped around his spear like an immortal sacred flame, making it look dazzling and eye-catching. Stay here. A desolate blood warrior from the Purple Moon Kingdom's royal family intercepted him. He was also holding a spear, but the spear was wrapped in purple flames. Boom! There was a violent collision. Niklos Blaze didn't slow down and continued to charge forward, while the royal family's desolate blood warrior was forced back. His hand, holding the spear, was trembling violently. It was obvious that he was at a disadvantage. Thump, thump. Two more desolate blood warriors intercepted him, but they were all swept away by Niklos Blaze's spear. During this process, Niklos Blaze didn't stop at all. In the end, Niklos Blaze successfully retreated with Kodak Blaze. Everyone looked at his back as he left, but there was nothing they could do. It's over. Gray exhaled a mouthful of turbid air and looked at the blood-stained plains in front of him, lost in thought. The huge plains were littered with corpses. Mutilated corpses were everywhere. Severed arms, heads, legs, and bodies that had been split in half. Most of the corpses had been smashed into a bloody pulp by the shock waves of the battle just now, fusing with the surrounding soil. The original green color was no longer there. Everything was dyed red with blood. In the low-lying areas, puddles of blood could even be seen. The strong smell of blood filled the plains. Some of the soldiers who had survived their first battle couldn't help but vomit under the stimulation of the strong smell of blood. Even Gray could not help but frown slightly in the face of such a strong smell of blood after his fighting spirit had disappeared. He strode towards Earl Fergus and the others to check on the situation of Earl Fergus and the others. Earl Fergus, Zaloyang, Polly, Bernal, and Darren were heavily injured. Fortunately, their lives weren't in danger. The 4 barbarian-level blood fiends, especially the 3 that Gray could metallize, became their best shields and helped them attract most of the strong enemies. As for the 4 barbarian-level blood fiends that attracted the firepower, the bear-type blood fiend controlled by Earl Fergus was destroyed. Even the brute ant, one of the 3 barbarian-level blood fiends controlled by Gray, was destroyed. Fortunately, the corpses of the blood fiends were the most commonly seen on the battlefield. Giving the people who obtained the spoils of war a price quickly replenished the lost combat power. The army entered the city to rest and reorganize. At the same time, they collected the supplies that the Flame Kingdom's allied forces couldn't take away in time. Not long after, the casualties were calculated. After hearing the casualty figures from Sophia, Gray remained silent for a long time. The Purple Moon Kingdom had lost a total of 50,000 soldiers in this battle. Among them, 2 desolate blood warriors and 2 desolate-level blood fiends had died. 18 desolate blood warriors and 12 desolate blood fiends had died. This was a very large number of casualties. Apart from the king-level blood fiends, 2 desolate blood warriors and 2 desolate blood fiends had died. The total number of desolate blood warriors and desolate blood fiends had reached 30. In the Purple Moon Kingdom, barbarian-level existences could be said to be the top fighting force. The desolate blood warriors were usually in seclusion and rarely took action, so the barbarian blood warriors naturally became the top fighting force. Yet, such existences had actually lost a total of 30 of them. One could imagine how heavy the Purple Moon Kingdom's casualties were in this battle. As for the huge number of casualties of 50,000 people, it was as if it was written in blood. It was dripping blood, causing everyone to be shocked and speechless for a long time. 50,000 people, 50,000 lives, withered away on this inconspicuous plain. Most of them couldn't even preserve their corpses because their flesh and blood had mixed with the soil and the enemy's flesh and blood. It was difficult to separate them. This is war. Sophia sighed softly. As a member of the royal family, She was more aware of the cruelty of war than Gray. She had already expected this number of casualties. Moreover, this isn't the end. The war isn't over yet. The number of casualties will continue to increase. In a war like this, the only thing we can do is to try our best to survive. At this point, she looked at Gray and said seriously, "Don't worry. Don't die." Chapter 398. What are the casualties of the Flame Kingdom's barbarian level and above? Gray inquired about the Flame Kingdom's barbarian level and above casualties. 2 wild blood warriors, 3 desolate level blood fiends, 22 barbarian level blood warriors, and 16 barbarian level blood fiends. How many people died in total? About 100,000, but this number isn't accurate. It's just a rough estimate. Many of them didn't even preserve their corpses, so it's not accurate. In terms of the total number of casualties, especially the total number of casualties, the Raging Flame Kingdom's army was much larger than the Purple Moon Kingdom's. The reason for such a large difference in numbers was obviously because of the Purple Moon Kingdom's army's tactics. It was precisely because of the front and back tactics that the Flame Kingdom's army was attacked from both sides. They were attacked from the front and back, and their casualties were greatly increased. After bidding farewell to Sophia, Gray returned to his temporary residence in the city. It was a rather elegant room with a small garden attached. This time, Gray's performance on the battlefield was obvious to all. Therefore, although Gray was a descendant of a noble family, the treatment he received was not inferior to any of the upper echelons of a marquis family. "I need a lot of battle credits to exchange for a desolate level Blood Fiend's corpse." The Purple Moon Kingdom's army and the Flame Kingdom's army had lost a total of 5 desolate level Blood Fiends, all of which had fallen into the hands of the Professional Kingdom's army. Gray suddenly had the idea of controlling the desolate level Blood Fiends. Previously, he had inquired Sophia about how he could exchange for a desolate level Blood Fiend's corpse. He learned that he needed to exchange for a desolate level Blood Fiend's corpse with battle credits, and the number of battle credits required was a little exaggerated. Even though he had performed outstandingly in this battle, the amount of battle credits he had accumulated was still far from enough. This was understandable. After all, a desolate level Blood Fiend's entire body was a treasure. Its scales could be made into armor, and its teeth, claws, horns, and bones could be made into weapons and rune items. Under such circumstances, it would obviously require a lot of battle credits to exchange for a complete desolate level Blood Fiend's corpse. There's no need to rush. On the battlefield, 1 desolate level Blood Fiend's help is far less than 4 barbarian level Blood Fiends. Even though a desolate level Blood Fiend could increase his combat strength, it would cause him to lose his advantage in numbers, and he wouldn't be able to protect Earl Fergus and the rest at the same time. As for the 4 barbarian level Blood Fiends, he could use 3 of them to protect Earl Fergus and the rest, while the Purple Blood Fiend with extremely strong defense would join forces with him. Most importantly, according to his investigation, the Blood Fiends were all element type, even if they were under his control. If I have enough battle merits in the future, I can exchange for one. Although I can't use it on the battlefield, I can use it in other situations in the future. According to Gray's estimation, the Naeem family would never leave the matter at that. After the war ended, they would probably find trouble with him. The carcass of a desolate level Blood Fiend should be able to come in handy against the other party. After all, the other party would not brazenly attack him, and there should not be too many people attacking him. War is indeed extremely dangerous. Gray recalled the danger he had encountered in this battle and couldn't help but feel a sense of lingering fear. Even though his defense was so strong that it was difficult for a desolate blood warrior to seriously injure him, this battle was extremely dangerous, and he had almost lost his life. If not for his reverse nurturing ability, he would have most likely died in this battle. After all, he was already seriously injured. Thinking of the danger in this battle, he couldn't help but think of Curtis Inferno's blood skills. I didn't expect blood skills from the Empire's era to still exist, even if they're incomplete. The Empire's era was one of the most glorious times on this mainland. During that time, there were many king-level existences and even existences above them. During that time, some of the top forces in the Empire possessed blood skills. However, after the Empire's era, there were no more records of blood skills. Many books speculated that these blood skills were extinct. Gray originally thought that blood skills were extinct. He didn't expect the Flame Kingdom's royal family to still possess them, even if they were incomplete. I'll have to be careful in future battles. Desolate Blood warriors with blood skills were extremely dangerous. If they went all out, they could seriously injure him, so he had to be extremely careful. The only fortunate thing was that the blood skills in the four great kingdoms' hands were incomplete. They couldn't be used continuously and could only be used once. Moreover, after using them, the body would be seriously injured. With his defense and his reverse nurturing ability, as long as he was on his guard, he was confident that he could protect himself. In the previous battle, what was that black wind that was formed after the icy wind blade and the flame ability collided? Gray couldn't help but recall the strange scene that had occurred in the previous battle. After the icy wind blade and the flame ability collided, there wasn't a violent explosion. Instead, they melted and disappeared. In the end, a black wind appeared. Everything in the area affected by this wind, including rocks, soil, plants, everything was turned into powder. There wasn't any violent energy, but it gave people a terrifying feeling. It was extremely dangerous. Gray felt that the destructive power of that black wind was definitely not lower than the Desolate Grade. However, that phenomenon only appeared once. After that, when the icy wind blade collided with the blue-haired young man's flame pillar, it didn't appear again. What's going on? A flash of light flashed through Gray's mind. It was as if he had grasped something, but also as if he hadn't grasped anything. Suddenly, he clapped his hands together as he thought of a possibility. Three-elemental mixed ability. Although he had never seen a three-elemental mixed ability, Gray estimated that it existed. He just didn't know how to combine them to form a three-elemental mixed ability. After the ice wind blade clashed with the flames, the black wind that was produced was most likely a combination of the ice, wind blade, and fire elemental abilities. Because of this, the two abilities at the second level of the Barbarian level were upgraded to the Desolate level. The reason why the Black Wind didn't appear in the subsequent battles was probably because the three-elemental mixed ability couldn't be formed simply by mixing them. There must be a special fusion method. During the initial battle, it just so happened that this fusion method was suitable, which triggered the fusion and formed the Black Wind. Whether it's like this or not, I should be able to find out the truth when I consume the blood of the flame blood beast next time. The more Gray thought about it, the more he felt that it was possible. He just had to wait for the blood of the flame blood beast to be able to confirm it the next time. I already have the blood of a special barbarian level fire elemental blood beast, but if it's possible, it'd be best if it's Desolate Grade or above. Where can I find it? Among the 5 Desolate Grade blood beasts that died this time, there was indeed a fire elemental blood beast. However, it was only a normal blood beast and hadn't reached the special level. Obviously, it couldn't be used. Right. One of the blood techniques mastered by the royal family of the Purple Moon Kingdom is the fire elemental blood beast blood technique. The royal family must have it. Next time, I'll see if I can buy one from Sophia. The next morning, in Gray's courtyard, a huge blue-scaled beast stood on all fours. Purple lightning flashed in its eyes, and its body exuded a strong sense of majesty. This was the blood technique that Gray was cultivating. Fortunately, the residents arranged for him had an independent courtyard so that no one would see him cultivating the blood technique. Otherwise, it would definitely be shocking. After all, the blood technique that he was cultivating now was no longer the original Wind Wolf sequence blood technique, but the Thunder Dragon Beast blood technique. The replacement of one blood technique with another was extremely shocking. Even during the era of the Empire, it was impossible to do so. Only in some books unearthed during the era of the Empire, there seemed to be a way to replace the original bloodline with a new one. However, even the powerful Empire couldn't master this method. After a long time, the blue-scaled beast disappeared and Gray withdrew from his cultivation. I didn't expect that record to be true. Gray was slightly surprised when he sensed that he had completed half of the third training method in the second round of training. He had once read in a book that some blood warriors would experience a drastic increase in their physical fitness after experiencing life and death situations. Their cultivation speed would also increase by leaps and bounds. He had always been skeptical about such records, but after experiencing a life and death battle yesterday, he unexpectedly discovered that his cultivation speed had indeed increased by leaps and bounds. It was a huge improvement compared to the previous day. Could this be the reason why the Flame Kingdom starts a war every few years? Gray suddenly thought of a possibility. The Flame Kingdom was a very warlike kingdom. Almost every few years, they would invade the Purple Moon Kingdom, the Crimson Kingdom, and the Jewel Kingdom. It was as if they took pleasure in war. Now that he had confirmed it himself, one's strength would indeed increase at a faster rate in life and death situations. He couldn't help but suspect that the reason the Flame Kingdom started a war every few years was to obtain the opportunity to temper themselves between life and death situations. Although many people would die in this process, if they could survive this kind of war, their strength would definitely increase by leaps and bounds. This process was like raising venomous insects. The weak would die, and the strong would become stronger. Although the losses were great, if they could cultivate king-level fighters through this method, then all the losses would be worth it. After breakfast, Gray went to the residence of Earl Fergus and Baronal to find out about the casualties of the Fergus family and the nobles. A lord, more than 10 nobles, and more than 500 soldiers had died in battle. This wasn't a small number for the Fergus family. However, this was war. Casualties were unavoidable, and death was the most normal. If there were no deaths in a war, then it wouldn't be called a war. After staying for a while, Gray returned to his residence. Just as he reached the door, he saw a blood warrior with the insignia of the Purple Moon Kingdom's royal family waiting at the door. Chapter 399. Sir Gray, His Highness Francis has organized a gathering and has specially asked me to invite you to attend. Upon seeing Gray, this blood warrior, who wore the insignia of the Purple Moon Kingdom's royal family on his body, stepped forward respectfully. His attitude was extremely courteous, without a trace of the arrogance of a member of the royal family, nor a trace of contempt. Gray had already displayed his strength on the battlefield the day before. As a descendant of a noble family, His Highness Francis had specially extended an invitation, which showed how much His Highness Francis valued him. Please lead the way. Under the lead of this blood warrior of the Purple Moon Kingdom's royal family, Gray entered a huge residence and then came to a garden. Hundreds of flowers were in full bloom in the garden, their fragrance assailing the nostrils. Brilliant but not blazing sunlight sprinkled down, dyeing the garden with a layer of golden color. Butterflies and bees fluttered in the garden, creating a beautiful scene. In one corner of the garden, there was a long pavilion. In the pavilion, there were stone tables and chairs. Most of these chairs were already occupied, with a total of more than 30 people seated within. There were men and women among these people, and they were all very young. They were either wearing battle armor or noble attire. Their bodies faintly exuded a powerful aura, and their strength was not ordinary. Among them, Gray saw Sophia, Zero and his 2 siblings, Jessica and her sister from the Cumberland family, and of course the Warner brothers. As descendants of a duke's family, they were naturally among the invited. Upon seeing Gray's arrival, many people looked at him. Some had curiosity in their eyes, some had a trace of reverence, some had smiles, some had indifferent expressions, and some had cold expressions. In regards to Gray's valiant display of strength in yesterday's battle, the younger generation of each family expressed their own attitude, or rather, their own families. Those with cold expressions and obvious hostility toward Gray were naturally the descendants of families who had conflicts with Gray, such as the Warner brothers, the Wallen family's Edgar Wallen, and a young man from the Orca family. However, apart from their cold expressions, these people did not provoke Gray. They had either experienced or heard of Gray's strength and knew that they were no match for him. Moreover, Gray's performance on the battlefield yesterday had completely intimidated them. causing them to not have any thoughts of fighting him. Of course, the most important thing was that this gathering was organized by His Highness Francis. If they were to stir up trouble on such an occasion, it would obviously offend His Highness Francis, a prince who held real power in his hands. Even a duke's family would not dare to do so. Sit Gray. Francis Violet was very amiable as he smiled and invited Gray to sit. After greeting the people he was familiar with, Gray sat beside Aloyan and his siblings. He did not join in the conversation, but instead quietly listened to the nobles' conversations. Due to yesterday's victory, the atmosphere in the pavilion was rather lively. The Flame Kingdom is too arrogant. That's right, they actually have designs on Her Highness the First Princess and Second Princess. What a dream. They suffered a great loss this time. Let's see how arrogant they can be. Let's do it this way. Drive them out of the Purple Moon Kingdom with all our might. The Flame Kingdom's provocation before the battle had made the young people present extremely angry. Now that they had defeated the Flame Kingdom, the young people present felt that all the grievances in their hearts had dissipated. Although we have won this battle, don't underestimate the Flame Kingdom's allied forces. This war is not over yet, Francis Violet said sternly. He was dressed in blue noble attire, had a head of purple hair, and was tall and straight. Although he did not have any airs, he had a faint majesty. Your Highness is right. The war is not over yet. Although the Flame Kingdom has suffered great losses in this battle, they still have the strength to fight again. Elijah and his sister from the Addison family added. Their green hair and handsome and beautiful appearance made the siblings extremely eye-catching. Indeed, we can't be careless. Although I don't want to admit it, it's undeniable that in terms of overall strength, the Flame Kingdom is the strongest among the four kingdoms. Her Highness the First Princess said with a slight frown. Like Sophia and Francis, she also had a head of brilliant purple hair, a tall figure, and a voluptuous chest that outlined her perfect curves. Let's not talk about the older generation for now. In terms of the younger generation, we are inferior. Among the younger generation of the Kingdom of Fire, the first prince, Kotick Inferno, and the second prince, Nichols Inferno, are both desolate blood warriors. As for the younger generation of the Kingdom of Purple Moon, only the eldest brother is a desolate blood warrior. Especially Nicholas Blaze. I feel that his strength is already incomparable to that of an ordinary desolate blood warrior. Someone added, under such circumstances, he was actually able to lead Kotick Blaze and break out of the encirclement. Your Highness Francis, you fought him. What do you think of his strength? Many people looked at Francis Violet, and Gray was no exception. Although he did not fight with Nicholas Blaze, the other party gave him a very fearful feeling. In terms of combat strength, the other party was definitely stronger than Kotick Blaze. Very strong, Francis Violet said with a grave expression. I barely managed to block him with the help of a desolate-level blood beast. If it was one-on-one, I would definitely not be his match. I feel that his strength is very close to the second level of the desolate level. Hearing his words, the young people present, including Gray, could not help but change their expressions. They were shocked by this news. What? Close to the second level of the desolate level? How is that possible? How old is he? How could he be close to the second level of the desolate level so quickly? Some of the young people could not help but doubt. The higher one's strength was, the more difficult it was to improve. The difficulty of improving from the first level of the desolate level to the second level of the desolate level was no less than the difficulty of improving from the brute level to the desolate level. They could not believe that the other party was close to the second level of the desolate level. This is only my guess. I can't be sure. Francis Violet shook his head. Although Nicholas Blaze is indeed very strong, he is not so strong that we cannot contend with him. We cannot be careless against the younger generation of the Flame Kingdom, but there is no need to be afraid because of this. Sophia said, this time, the Flame Kingdom's younger generation has 2 desolate blood warriors. So what? These 2 desolate blood warriors were blocked by our younger generation, and one of them was almost killed. Your Highness the Second Princess is right. Many people looked at Gray and Gavin Kenneth with admiration and kindness in their eyes. This time, there were two desolate blood warriors among the younger generation of the Flame Kingdom. One of them was blocked by His Highness Francis and a desolate-level blood beast, while the other was blocked by Gray, Gavin Kenneth, and a purple blood beast, and was almost killed. In comparison, although the Purple Moon Kingdom's younger generation did not have two desolate blood warriors, the overall combat strength of the younger generation was not much weaker than the other party. Of course, they all knew that the Flame Kingdom's younger generation was not real. The Flame Kingdom's younger generation that appeared on this battlefield were definitely not all of the younger generation of the Flame Kingdom. There should be a large number of them who did not come along. As the Flame Kingdom's overall strength was ranked first among the four kingdoms, it needed the Purple Moon Kingdom, the Scarlet Kingdom, and the Jewel Kingdom to form an offensive and defensive alliance. It was definitely not as simple as it seemed. The exchange continued. This was a gathering for the young people to exchange their feelings and cultivation experiences. Some people talked about how life and death situations could improve one's cultivation. Some talked about some combat skills, and some talked about the terrifying destructive power that Kodak Blaze suddenly erupted with yesterday. Your Highness Francis, yesterday, Kodak Flame suddenly erupted with terrifying combat strength. What was that about? That was a blood skill, a combat technique that can be used together with blood techniques. It can increase one's combat strength by several times or even more than 10 times through the complicated use of blood power. Francis Violet explained, "Since the Flame Kingdom has such a technique, doesn't it mean that they can erupt with destructive power that is several times or even more than 10 times their own?" Someone was worried. Don't worry too much. Even the Flame Kingdom, only the royal family and a few duke families have it, and they are all incomplete. Francis Violet comforted. Moreover, this incomplete blood skill will cause great damage to one's body if used. Normally, one wouldn't dare to use it unless it was a matter of life and death. The gathering started in the morning and only ended in the afternoon. The disciples of the various families had all dispersed, and Gray found Sophia. You want to buy the blood of special fire-type blood fiend of desolation level or above. Sophia looked at Gray with slight surprise. She naturally knew that the blood technique that Gray cultivated was the Wind Wolf sequence. Do you have it with you? If you do, I would like to buy it from you. Gray nodded. Because he had obtained a large amount of wealth from the Tomb of the Kings, he was now extremely wealthy and had the ability to buy it. The blood technique that I cultivate is not a fire-type blood technique, so I don't have the blood of a fire-type blood fiend. Sophia shook her head. She didn't ask Gray why he wanted to buy it. But I have it with me. Follow me. Under Sophia's lead, after passing through a few courtyards, Gray met Francis Violet again. I don't have the blood of a fire-type king-level blood fiend. I only have the blood of a desolation-level blood fiend. After knowing the purpose of Gray's visit, Francis Violet said, I wonder if your Highness can sell me a copy? There's no need to sell it. I'll give you a copy. Gray tried to decline, but in the end, he couldn't refuse. He didn't refuse and kept the blood. A desolation-level blood fiend, even if it was a special blood, was worth at most tens of thousands of gold coins. To the Prince of the Purple Moon Kingdom, it was indeed nothing. There was no need to be pretentious. Chapter 400. Half a month later, the Alliance Army of the Purple Moon Kingdom and the Alliance Army of the Flame Kingdom engaged in a battle 100 miles away from Thunder Buddha City. Both sides lost more than 40,000 men and ended in a draw. In this battle, the Purple Moon Kingdom lost 1 desolate blood warrior, 1 desolate level blood fiend, 11 barbarian blood warriors, and 6 barbarian blood fiends. The Flame Kingdom lost 1 desolate blood warrior, 1 desolate level blood fiend, 10 barbarian blood warriors, and 5 barbarian blood fiends. A month later, the Alliance Army of the Flame Kingdom attacked the Alliance Army of the Purple Moon Kingdom in the Red Rock Canyon. The Flame Kingdom caught them off guard and defeated the Purple Moon Kingdom. They lost a total of 80,000 men, which was 40,000 more than the Flame Kingdom. In terms of high-level combat power, the Purple Moon Kingdom lost 2 desolate blood warriors, 3 desolate level blood fiends, 17 barbarian blood warriors, and 12 barbarian blood fiends. The Flame Kingdom lost 1 desolate blood warrior, 1 desolate level blood fiend, 8 barbarian blood warriors, and 5 barbarian blood fiends. 2 months later, the Alliance Army of the Purple Moon Kingdom circled behind the Alliance Army of the Flame Kingdom and launched a surprise attack on the Alliance Army of the Flame Kingdom. The Alliance Army of the Purple Moon Kingdom won, and the Alliance Army of the Flame Kingdom lost 90,000 men, while paying a price of 30,000 men. In terms of high-level combat power, the Purple Moon Kingdom lost 1 desolate level blood fiend, 6 barbarian blood warriors, and 3 barbarian blood fiends. The Flame Kingdom lost 3 desolate blood warriors, 2 desolate level blood fiends, 25 barbarian blood warriors, and 15 barbarian blood fiends. This was a bitter and long war. Small skirmishes occurred every few days, while large skirmishes occurred every half a month. Blood dyed the land of Duke Nahem red, and corpses piled up into mountains. Unknowingly, half a year had passed. The number of people in the allied forces of the two countries had decreased from the initial 300,000 to the current 100,000. Adding up, more than 400,000 people from both sides had died in Duke Naim's territory. Too many people had died. Some of the battlefields had even given birth to specters. Once night fell, specters would wander about, creating a dancing chi. Even birds and beasts would not be able to survive, becoming a forbidden zone for life. In such a cruel battle, there were constantly people who broke through their original realm and reached a higher realm. It was also because of this that the two countries were able to maintain a certain number of high-level combatants. Kill, kill, kill. On a piece of land where not even a blade of grass grew, tragic screams resounded through the heavens and earth. More than 200,000 people were crazily killing each other on this piece of land. Blood was splashing everywhere. Flesh and blood were flying everywhere. Shouts of killing filled the sky, and miserable shrieks rose and fell one after another. Weapons were clashing, and lives were withering. A cavalryman from the Purple Moon Kingdom stabbed a cavalryman from the Flame Kingdom to death with a spear. However, in the next moment, a spear pierced through his chest and pierced his heart. He slid down from his horse with an unwilling look in his eyes. A ferocious blood warrior from the Flame Kingdom roared and used the remaining blood force to activate the Blood Fiend ability. More than 10 spikes pierced out from the ground. More than 10 Purple Moon Kingdom soldiers were skewered on the spikes. Some died on the spot, while others were still struggling in pain. A ferocious blood warrior from the Flame Kingdom let out a smug grin. However, in the next moment, a snow-white blade slashed across his neck. His grin remained on his face as his head flew up. Fresh blood dyed the body of a ferocious blood warrior from the Purple Moon Kingdom red. A ferocious blood warrior from the Flame Kingdom and a ferocious blood warrior from the Purple Moon Kingdom were holding heavy axes as they shuttled through the crowd and exchanged blows. They only had eyes for their opponents. Nothing else mattered to them. Wherever they went, blood and flesh splattered everywhere. This was only caused by the aftermath of their battle. Kill! A ferocious blood warrior roared furiously. His roar was like a thunderclap. Some of the soldiers and cavalrymen from the two kingdoms who were closer to the battle had blood seeping out of their ears. Roar! 2 8-meter-long ferocious blood fiends were fighting. With their huge bodies, every time they collided, dozens of people would be sent flying like weeds. Their bones would shatter and they would die. This was a meat grinder. Every moment, someone would die under it. Blood dyed this barren land red, turning the yellowish-brown soil into a dark red color. Under the influence of the blood, the originally dry land became muddy. After half a year of fighting, many of the younger generation from the two kingdoms had emerged. They shone brightly on the battlefield. Among them, the most dazzling were naturally Nicholas Blaze and Francis Violet. They were the two princes of their respective kingdoms. They had displayed combat power that far surpassed their peers. In their young lives, no one was their match except for each other. Looking at the two of them fighting, one could already see the scene of the two of them dominating the world in the future. They would become king-level masters and stand at the peak. Other than the two of them, There were also many people among the younger generation from the two kingdoms who shone brightly. Although they were not as bright as the two of them, it was still difficult to overshadow their brilliance. Sophia practiced a special blood technique that the Purple Moon Kingdom had never revealed to the outside world. Although she was only a ferocious blood warrior, she had extreme speed that even ferocious blood warriors could not match. Until now, she had maintained the record of not being injured. Curtis Blaze was a ferocious blood warrior. He was the third ferocious blood warrior in the younger generation after Nicholas Blaze and Francis Violet. He was recognized as the third strongest person among the younger generation of the two kingdoms. Tracy Jeffrey was a descendant of the Duke family of the Flame Kingdom. His strength had reached the second level of the barbarian level. With the help of a peak bronze magic weapon, he could fight ferocious blood warriors. Gavin Kenneth was also at the second level of the barbarian level. With the help of a peak bronze magic weapon, he had fought ferocious blood warriors many times. Hylia Violet was the princess of the Purple Moon Kingdom. Her strength had reached the second level of the barbarian level. She also had the strength to fight ferocious blood warriors. Zachary Lance was a descendant of the Duke family of the Flame Kingdom. He had broken through to the second level of the barbarian level during the battle. He was one of the most dazzling people among the younger generation of the two kingdoms. Gray was only at the first level of the ferocious blood warrior. However, with the ability of a hybrid blood beast, he was able to squeeze into the crowd with a defense that was so strong that it was difficult for even the barbarian level to deal with. Die! Curtis Blaze roared. A golden flame shot out from his spear and turned into a giant bird beast. With a raging fire that seemed to be able to melt everything, it crashed towards Gray. Gray's expression was solemn. The long green river rushed out, blocking the huge flaming bird beast while he dodged to the side. He knew very well that the green river would definitely not be able to block the flaming bird beast. After all, it was an attack from a ferocious blood warrior. Sure enough, under the attack of the flaming bird beasts, the green river was like mist under the sun. It evaporated in an instant, and the flaming bird beasts attacked Gray directly. Whoosh! Although he managed to dodge most of the attack, his right hand was not able to dodge. The part of his clothes that was brushed by the flaming bird burned instantly. There were even burn marks on his hand. Fortunately, these marks were not too obvious. After all, his defense was there. Whoosh! The purple blood beast behind Kodak Raging Flame was like a small mountain as it pounced at Kodak Raging Flame. Get out of my way! Curtis Blaze snorted coldly. He slammed the spear in his hand backward and violently hit the purple blood beast that was pouncing towards him. After leaving a crack on the purple blood beast's body, the purple blood beast was sent flying. Then he swung the spear in front of him. A flame shot out and burned all of Gray's lightning metal blades into liquid. I said that I would make you wish you were dead. Codicus Blaze looked at Gray with a ruthless expression. After using the incomplete blood skill, he had rested for more than a month before he completely recovered. He hated Gray and Gavin Kenneth to the core for causing him to be in this state. You have to have the ability to do so first. Gray sneered disdainfully. A green river rushed towards the other party. He and the purple blood beast also pounced towards the other party. Don't think that you can defeat me just because Gavin is stopped. Gavin Kenneth was stopped by Zachary Lance, a descendant of the Flame Kingdom's Duke family. Now, he was facing Curtis Blaze alone. If it wasn't for that defensive magic weapon on you, you would have died many times over. Golden flames gushed out and collapsed the green river. Codicus Raging Flame said with a look of contempt, "What's the point of this assumption?" Holding a 10-meter-long lightning metal longsword in his hand, Gray sneered again and again as he swept the sword towards Codicus Blaze. It was laughable to pin victory on an assumption. According to what the other party said, he could still kill the other party if he had a silver-grade magic weapon in his hand. Moreover, the defense on his body was not brought about by the magic weapon. It was his own ability. It was almost impossible to take it away. It is indeed meaningless, but it will be meaningful if I can kill you. Curtis Blaze snorted coldly as he thrust his spear forward. The lightning metal longsword, that was more than 10 meters long, was instantly broken. The spear tip did not lose its momentum and stabbed viciously into Gray's chest. Gray flew backwards pathetically. All the soldiers that he crashed into, whether they were from the Purple Moon Kingdom or the Flame Kingdom, exploded into minced meat. Before Gray could get up, Curtis Blaze chased after Gray in large strides. He attacked Gray one after another, and Gray flew backwards one after another. Even with his terrifyingly strong defense, wounds could not help but appear on his body. Fresh blood seeped out and dyed his whole body red. The clothes on his body had long been burned to ashes by the golden flames, leaving only a pair of pants on his body. It was sewn with the leather of a desolate-level blood beast. Although it was also burnt black, at least it did not turn into ashes like his clothes. Woo-woo. Following the sound of a horn, the Raging Flame Kingdom's and Purple Moon Kingdom's armies began to retreat. Those who were still alive quickly retreated to the sides, leaving behind corpses one after another in a bright red color. "I will kill you next time." Glaring at Gray, who was covered in wounds, Codicus Blaze snorted coldly, and then quickly followed the retreating Kingdom of Fire's allied army. If he was alone, he would definitely be surrounded, so he could only give up on continuing to attack Gray. Chapter 401. You need to have the strength to do so. Gray glared at him coldly, but the pain on his body made him grimace. In the recent battles, Gavin Kenneth was stopped by Zachary Lance, and Curtis Flame had his eyes on him. He would find Gavin in almost every battle, and Gavin was covered in injuries in almost every battle. "Are you okay?" Sophia walked over. She was dressed in a white battlesuit. Her waist was slender, and her chest was high. Her beautiful figure was undoubtedly exposed. There was not a speck of dust on her body, as if she had not experienced any fighting. She was also unscathed in this battle, maintaining the record of being unscathed. "I won't die." Gray smiled and shook his head. "This is for you." Sophia handed a crystal bottle filled with red liquid to Gray. It was a healing potion, and it was not an ordinary healing potion. "No need. I can recover from my injuries by finding a place with plants." Gray shook his head and did not accept such a healing potion. He did not want to waste something that could save his life at a critical moment. With the reverse nurturing ability, he only needed to consume some blood force to recover all the injuries on his body. It was not worthwhile to use such a precious item. After leaving the campsite, Gray found a forest and walked into it, preparing to use the reverse nurturing ability. The reverse nurturing ability was obtained by Gray from the Jade Lizard, a berserk blood fiend. Even now, the effect of this ability was extremely strong. It could be said to be one of his most important abilities, and he himself named it as a permanent ability. If abilities are divided according to type, they should be divided into three major categories: elemental, soul, and physical. If they are divided according to my own situation, they should be divided into permanent abilities and temporary abilities. According to the introduction of a book from the Empire period that Gray had read, abilities were divided into three major categories: elemental, soul, and physical. Within each major category, there were many subcategories. For example, in the elemental category, there were 10 types of elements: earth, fire, wind, thunder, ice, shadow, water, poison, wood, and metal. The physical category was divided into strength, speed, defense, and other physical abilities like the iron arms of the Iron Arm Ape. However, in Gray's opinion, this classification was not very suitable for him. For him, the most practical classification should be permanent abilities and temporary abilities. Permanent abilities meant that this ability could be used for a long time at various stages and could be maintained for a long time, or even forever. Temporary abilities could only be used at a certain stage. After this stage, the effect of this ability would be severely weakened. The most common elemental abilities after a certain stage would no longer increase in power. Although the ability would still be retained, it was no longer enough for Gray's use. Gray. Throughout his growth, Gray had obtained many abilities through the transformation ability that allowed him to consume blood. However, He rarely used many of them because they were no longer of much use to him. Whether the metal ability was permanent or temporary, he would have to wait until he surpassed the desolate level copperback dragon that provided the blood and reached the king level before he could verify the effects of the metal ability. Only then would he know. Reverse Nurture. After releasing the other blood fiends, Gray used Reverse Nurture. A green light shone from the plant and gathered toward him and the 4 blood fiends. In just a moment, all the injuries on Gray and the 4 blood fiends had disappeared. After checking his body, Gray could vaguely see that he had once been injured, but it was no longer obvious. He nodded in satisfaction. This ability could be used at any stage and would definitely accompany him for a long time. It was undoubtedly a permanent ability. My injuries have healed, but I can't just keep getting beaten up like this. Gray knew the characteristics of his ability. His defense was strong, but his attack was relatively weak. However, he was still a little unhappy that he had been beaten up so many times in a row that he couldn't even retaliate. If I can reach the 2nd level of the Barbarian level, I should be able to compete with Curtis Inferno. But even with my current cultivation speed, I still need at least 1 or 2 months. The training between life and death was very effective. In just half a year, he had already reached the late stage of the 4th cultivation method of the 2nd round. As long as he could break through this cultivation method, he would have completed a round of cultivation and reached the 2nd level of the Barbarian level. This speed of improvement was far beyond his expectations. He had reached this level in just 1 year. If he continued like this, he should be able to break through to the Desolate level in just 1 more year. In total, it would take him more than 2 years to break through from the Barbarian level to the Desolate level. Gray guessed that even Francis Violet's cultivation speed would be slightly slower than his. I wanted to wait until I reached the 2nd level before taking it, but I can't wait any longer. Because of the backlash from the last time he took the blood, Gray wanted to wait until his body's quality improved and reached the 2nd level of the Barbarian level before taking the blood. But now, he decided not to wait any longer. The last time he took the blood, he had just finished the 1st cultivation method of the 2nd round. Now, he had reached the late stage of the 4th cultivation method of the 2nd round. Even if the requirement for his body to be strong increased every time he took the blood in the Barbarian level, it should be enough. After making up his mind, Gray took out a crystal bottle filled with purple liquid from his purple ring. The purple liquid was as bright as a purple flame. The purple liquid in the crystal bottle was the blood of the Fire Desolate level special blood beast that Gray had obtained from Francis Violet. Gulp. After uncorking the bottle, Gray swallowed the purple blood in 1 gulp. Boom! Flames started to burn on Gray's body. It wasn't as if it was real. Purple flames started to spread all over Gray's body, wrapping him up completely. The air was scorching hot, and the ground was scorched black under the purple flames. Heat and pain spread all over Gray's body. Sweat dripped down from Gray's body and evaporated immediately. What was unexpected was that although it looked extremely turbulent, as if Gray's entire body was about to ignite, the pain it brought to Gray was far less severe than the previous time. Although his entire body was being burned by the fire, his flesh and blood did not show any signs of being burned, except for the hair all over his body which had been burnt by the fire. He was not burned at all. He was bathed in the purple flames, enduring the pain and heat, and feeling the changes in his body. In the deepest part of his body, his blood was undergoing the deepest level of change. This change was from nothing to something, from something simple to something complicated. It was as if he was going through the evolution of a low-level species to a high-level species. This kind of evolution would normally take hundreds of millions of years, but now, every second could span tens of thousands of years. Obviously, since the last time he took the blood, his physical fitness had increased a lot. It was enough for him to endure this kind of transformation. After a long time, the flames on his body disappeared, and Gray opened his eyes. In an instant, it seemed as if there were purple flames burning in his eyes. After a while, the purple flames disappeared. He stood up and checked his body. Other than the hair on his body, there wasn't a single wound on his body. His skin was fair, and there weren't any traces of being burned. His face was angular, and the lines of his muscles were clearly visible. However, they weren't overly bloated. The only thing that made him frown was that all the hair on his body had disappeared. Even his eyebrows were gone. He looked very strange. If someone were to see him like this, it would probably become a stain on his life. Reverse nurturing. Using the reverse nurturing ability, Gray regrew the hair on his body. Only then did he heave a sigh of relief. His reputation was saved. Then, he checked the changes after taking the blood of the fire-type blood fiend. Whoosh! With a flick of his finger, a fist-sized purple flame flew out and landed on a tree not far away. With a boom, the whole tree burned violently and then turned into ashes in a few moments. This was undoubtedly the flame ability of the blood fiend he had swallowed. Obviously, he had obtained the blood of this blood fiend. Next, let's see if I can form a 3-element hybrid ability. Taking a breath, Gray's mind moved slightly, and he used his ability. Whoosh! A long river appeared. It's done. Seeing this long river, Gray's eyes suddenly burst with a light of surprise. The long river that appeared in front of him wasn't the usual long river that had a cold surface and sharp wind blades inside. Instead, it was a long river of pure black mist. He couldn't forget this color. It was definitely the same black mist that had appeared when he fought with the blue-haired young man from the Flame Kingdom. Whoosh! With a thought, the long black river rushed forward like a surging torrent. Several giant trees that were dozens of meters tall and needed several people to wrap their arms around them were wrapped in the black mist. Visible to the naked eye, the lower parts of these giant trees were turning into ashes and collapsing, as if they had experienced thousands of years. The tops of the giant trees also collapsed and fell into the black mist. Without exception, the tops also seemed to have experienced thousands of years and turned into ashes. After passing through the area where the giant trees were located, the black fog rushed forward. A huge mountain rock that weighed dozens of tons was wrapped in the black fog. Then, the mountain rock quickly turned into dust and collapsed at a speed visible to the naked eye. In the end, only a pile of fine stone powder was left. The black mist continued to rush forward. Along the way, the giant trees, mountain rocks, and everything else were all turned into fine powder by the black mist. Chapter 4:02. In the forest, a wide trail extended deep into the forest. Above this trace, everything no longer existed. Only piles of dust remained. When the wind blew, all the dust drifted with the wind, turning this place into an empty space. There was no violent outburst of power, but the destructive power it brought made even Gray, the master of this ability, feel his heart palpitate. Absolute desolate level destructive power. It didn't even feel like a normal desolate level ability, but a special desolate level ability. Its power was comparable to a desolate level special blood fiend. 3-elemental mixed ability. There wasn't much to say. This was definitely the result of the fusion of the ice and wind blades ability with a fire ability. Gray couldn't think of any other reason for this level of destructive power other than the fusion of the 3 elements. His guess was right. Ice, wind, and fire could indeed form a triple elemental mixed ability. After finding a lake in the forest and taking a bath, Gray returned to the camp of the Allied army. Compared to the last time, when he drank the blood this time, his physical strength had increased by quite a bit. As a result, although he was a little tired after drinking the blood this time, it wasn't too serious. Gray, where did you go just now? After returning to the tent, Gray found Earl Fergus and Bernal waiting for him in the tent. When they saw him return, they asked with concern, "I want to treat my wounds," and took a walk in the forest. "What's wrong?" Gray asked, puzzled. "There's a gathering held by the nobles of the kingdom tonight. The Fergus family is also invited," Earl Fergus said with pride. Different levels naturally had different social circles. The top was naturally the upper circle formed by the 3 dukes, 7 marquises, and even the royal family. Next was the nobles of the kingdom, formed by the earls and the nobles below them. As nobles of the kingdom, the families in this circle also had extremely deep backgrounds. Some of the earls' families' backgrounds were even comparable to the marquis families. Finally, there was a circle formed by the elite noble families of the Enfeft nobles. In the past, the Fergus family had a hard time even entering the last circle of nobles. Now, not only did they frequently attend gatherings of the nobles, even the nobles of the kingdom sent invitations to the Fergus family, inviting the Fergus family to join. This made him feel a deep sense of pride. At the same time, he couldn't help but sigh. He had really given birth to a good son. He naturally understood that the reason the Fergus family received such treatment was all because of Grey. The nobles of the kingdom have specially invited you to participate as well. Bernal said, "All right, let's go together then." Grey nodded in agreement. In fact, the circle that he was currently participating in was already the highest circle of upper-class nobles. He would be invited to almost every upper-class gathering in Guizhou. With his current strength, he was no longer worthy of being in the circle of nobles. However, he still decided to participate because he wanted to build connections for the Fergus family. He didn't care about these things, but the Fergus family did. The Fergus family needed these connections to develop. In the evening, the gathering was held in a large tent. "Your Excellency Grey, Earl Fergus, please come in." The arrival of Grey and the other two was immediately welcomed by the Leo family, the Carl family, and the Spencer family, the three important Count families who were hosting the party. They didn't dare to slight the Fergus family at all because of Grey's existence. This was the prestige that had been forged through battle. For a single person to fight a desolate blood warrior, this kind of strength made them all shocked and fearful. Although these noble families of the kingdom had deep foundations and weren't any weaker than the Marquis family, they didn't dare to be arrogant in front of this person, because this person alone was enough to fight against their entire family. Earl Leo, Earl Carl, and Earl Spencer are too courteous. Grey and the other two courteously replied, and then entered the tent under the guidance of these people. As soon as they entered the tent, there were already many gazes looking at them. After all, it was rare for three noble families to accompany them. When they saw Grey and the other two, especially after seeing Grey, some people had a look of understanding, and some came up to greet them. As one of the most eye-catching people on this battlefield, Grey was able to fight a desolate blood warrior alone, and his survival ability was even stronger than a desolate blood warrior. There were very few people who didn't know him. Grey and Earl Fergus responded to them one by one without arrogance, because their purpose was to build connections for the Fergus family. "Your Excellency Grey, thank you for the previous battle." A young man with slightly dark skin walked over and bowed slightly, full of gratitude to Grey. "No need. As a noble of the Purple Moon Kingdom, there's no need to be so polite. Instead, thank you for this matter," Grey said with a smile. The young man with dark skin in front of him was a direct descendant of the Leo family. In the previous battle, he encountered a desolate blood warrior and was almost in a desperate situation. Grey happened to be nearby, so he killed the desolate blood warrior and saved him. The reason why the Fergus family was invited this time was definitely because of him and the family behind him. The Fergus family had gained a lot from this banquet, and they had built up a lot of connections. The Fergus family intended to build connections by building connections with other nobles, paving the way for the family's future development. The other families also thought highly of the Fergus family's strength and had the intention of building connections with the Fergus family. Under the circumstances where both sides were interested in making friends, this kind of relationship was naturally established very easily. Everything came naturally. In the next few days, the Purple Moon Kingdom's alliance and the Flame Kingdom's alliance faced each other in a barren wasteland. A heavy and oppressive atmosphere pervaded between the two sides. Both sides were trying their best to recover from their injuries and prepare for the next battle. "This should be the last battle," Sophia said. "The last battle, huh?" Although Grey had guessed it, he wasn't sure. Now that he heard Sophia's words, he was finally sure. The Flame Kingdom's alliance isn't able to get reinforcements like us, so they can't withstand more battles. So no matter if they win or lose, the Flame Kingdom's alliance will withdraw from the Purple Moon Kingdom in the near future. So this might be the last battle. Sophia explained. The sky was dark and full of thick clouds, as if it would rain at any time. On the crimson ground, The Flame Kingdom's alliance and the Purple Moon Kingdom's alliance were facing each other, and terrifying murderous auras were surging. The ground under their feet was originally yellowish-brown, but after the battle a few days ago, the ground was dyed red by blood, turning the originally yellowish-brown ground into a crimson color. Although the corpses had already been burned, one could still see the remains of flesh on the crimson ground. Asterisk Kacha. Asterisk in the sky. A huge bolt of lightning that was a few miles long suddenly appeared on the horizon, followed by a sudden downpour. Lightning flashed, and thunder rumbled continuously. Kill, kill, kill! The alliance of the Purple Moon Kingdom's alliance and the Flame Kingdom's alliance began to move. They roared loudly and rushed toward each other. Their murderous auras were as vast as the sea, as if they were going to disperse the dark clouds in the sky. Their voices drowned out the rumbling thunder in the sky. Bang, bang, bang. The two alliance forces collided with each other, causing blood and flesh to splatter everywhere. A desolate level blood fiend that was 8 to 9 meters long collided with each other like two small mountains. With them as the center, large amounts of soil and rocks flew everywhere. Those who were affected by the soil and rocks, those who were weaker, were directly blasted into a bloody pulp, with bone fragments splattering everywhere. Those who were stronger were sent flying backward with many of their bones shattered. No one knew if they were dead or alive. With the two desolate level blood fiends as the center, a no-man's land within a radius of 100 meters was forcibly created. Some desolate level blood fiends that weren't stopped in time rushed into the two alliances. A series of people were sent flying. After landing on the ground, they spat out a few mouthfuls of blood and stopped breathing. All the bones in their bodies had been broken. There were also powerful desolate blood warriors who slashed out with their blood fiend ability. The blood fiend ability spread out for 100 meters, and everyone in its path was blasted into pieces. In the sky, heavy rain continued to pour down. Blood and rainwater mixed together. With every step, red water splashed everywhere. Their faces, which were either filled with fear or anger, were washed by the rain and became deathly pale. The blood-curdling screams of those who were on the brink of death were incessant. It was like the chirping of birds in the forest, rising and falling one after another. Every sound represented the withering of a life. This was a battlefield. Death was the main melody, and blood and minced flesh were the chaotic notes. The demonic sword in Gray's hand was surrounded by a green light that extended to a length of several meters. He quickly rushed forward and brushed past several Flame Kingdom's blood warriors. Wherever he passed, no one was able to stop him. Their faces were still filled with fear as they were cut into two at the waist. Pu. He shuttled back and forth on the battlefield, leaving corpses everywhere he passed. He was cold and emotionless, like a butcher. His expression was indifferent. Every slash of his sword would reap one or several lives. If you didn't kill them, they might kill your family and friends. This was a battlefield, a place where you couldn't talk about mercy. This was because your mercy might kill your family and friends, or even your comrades. Today is the day you die. A golden spear wrapped in flames pierced towards Gray. The golden flames wrapped around the spear didn't extinguish even in the heavy rain. This was a flame that could burn everything. Even the rainwater was no exception. Before the rainwater could get close, it had already evaporated. Caduceus Inferno attacked, his murderous aura as cold as an erupting volcano. He was obviously prepared to take advantage of this final battle to kill Gray. Chapter 4:03. Rumble. The spear with golden flames pierced towards Gray with a murderous aura. It brushed past a few soldiers from the two countries who were fighting. In the next moment, these soldiers were set ablaze in the rain and turned into ashes. Even though it was raining heavily, Gray could feel a crazy heat approaching him from afar. The green river rushed out and collided with the spear that was wrapped in golden flames. Holding the golden spear, Caduceus' raging flames snorted. The flames on the spear suddenly surged and turned into a flaming bird beast. Bang! Under the attack of the golden flaming bird beast, The green river disappeared without a trace. The golden flaming bird beast continued to rush towards Gray. However, with the green river slowing it down, Gray took the opportunity to dodge to the side. The golden flaming bird beast brushed past Gray and spread out for more than 100 meters. Everywhere it passed, there were corpses and ashes. Even the rain could not extinguish them. Whoosh! After dodging the golden flaming bird beast, Gray and the purple blood beast rushed towards Caduceus raging flames from two different directions. Whoosh! The purple blood beast clawed at Caduceus raging flames with its millstone-sized sharp claws. Caduceus raging flames' expression did not change. With a swing of his spear, the purple blood beast was sent flying. It was easy and casual, as if he was swatting away a fly. Although the purple blood beast had a strong defense, and even Caduceus raging flames' attacks could not injure it, the purple blood beast's weakness was very obvious. It could not use its blood beast abilities, and its combat power could only reach the first level of the Berserker realm. After fighting with Gray so many times, Caduceus raging flames had already figured out the purple blood beast's characteristics. It was easy for him to deal with it. Then he looked to the other side, at Gray, who was about to pounce with his sword. His eyes were filled with coldness. With a shake of his spear, a large amount of golden flames rushed towards Gray like a wave. In front of this wave-like flame, the blood and rain evaporated, the earth and rocks melted, and the corpses on the ground turned into ashes. This was an unparalleled, desolate level flame. It was a flame that the other party would never be able to withstand. His figure flashed as he prepared to chase after Gray, who had been sent flying by the flames. But at this moment, he suddenly discovered a black light flashing within the golden flames. Then he saw the golden flame suddenly split in two from the middle, revealing a gap big enough for people to pass through. Through this gap, Gray held a long sword wrapped in black mist and quickly rushed out, thrusting the sword towards his heart. A strong sense of danger made his hair stand on end. He quickly dodged to the side, but it was too sudden. Although he avoided his heart, he was still stabbed in the abdomen. Puff! The long sword in Gray's hand, that was wrapped in black light, had an unusual sharpness. Even with Caduceus raging flames' desolate level, his defense was definitely not weak, but under this sword, a small part of the tip of the sword pierced into his body. The tip of the sword that had pierced into Curtis Blaze's body had a terrifying destructive power spreading out in all directions. With the tip of the sword as the center, the surrounding flesh and blood was melting. Scram! Curtis Blaze's expression changed greatly. He raised his long spear and threw it towards Gray. It fiercely hit Gray's body and sent Gray flying. Then, he looked at his abdomen. His face could not help but turn pale. At his abdomen, a bloody hole appeared. It was as thick as 2 fingers. A large amount of blood was flowing out from the bloody hole, like a faucet that could not be stopped. You actually hurt me? Curtis Blaze took out a bottle of high-grade healing medicine and swallowed it in one gulp. Then, he looked at Gray, who was sent flying by a spear and had now stood up again with a gaze that wanted to eat someone. He was almost mad with anger. In the previous few battles with Gray, although he was not able to kill Gray, he was almost uninjured in every battle. With his strength, facing Gray, who was only at the 2nd level of the barbarian level, he was absolutely suppressed. It was impossible for Gray to have the chance to hurt him. This time, he came to Gray with the determination to kill Gray. However, he did not expect that the first one to be injured was not Gray, but himself. Such a huge difference made him unable to believe it. He almost went crazy. What kind of technique is this? After fighting with Gray so many times, he knew Gray's techniques like the back of his hand. However, this was the first time he saw a technique that had the power of a desolate level wrapped around the sword. Is the magic weapon in your hand a silver level? No, that's not right. How can you have it? To be able to make someone who was only at the 1st level of the barbarian level reach the desolate level by 2 levels, it could only be a silver level magic weapon. However, even he did not have a silver level magic weapon. How could his opponent have one? It was not that the royal family of the Flame Kingdom did not have silver level magic weapons. They had quite a lot of them. However, these silver-level magic weapons were assigned to the king-level masters. After all, only in the hands of a king-level master could the weapons be maximized. Therefore, even the Prince of the Flame Kingdom did not have a silver-level magic weapon. However, his opponent was obviously not a member of the royal family, yet he had a silver-level magic weapon in his hand. This made him want to vomit blood. It was as if their identities had been switched. His opponent was the Prince of the Flame Kingdom, and he was just an ordinary noble. Why? Why did you not use it before? Looking at it carefully, he found that the magic sword in Gray's hand was very familiar. It was the same magic sword that Gray had used in their previous battles. Thinking about it carefully, he realized that he had never seen his opponent use the Blood Fiend ability of this magic weapon. He couldn't figure out why the other party didn't use a silver-ranked magic weapon earlier. Take a guess. Holding the magic sword in his hand, the magic sword was surrounded by black mist. Gray quickly rushed towards Kotikas' flame. At the same time, he commanded the purple blood fiend to attack Kotikas' flame from the other side. In fact, it was not that he did not want to use the magic sword's ability, but the blood fiend ability of the magic sword was too weak for him. Although he could summon a green stone giant with the power of a second-level barbarian, it consumed too much of his blood energy. If he summoned it, his blood energy would be severely depleted. On the other hand, his mixed blood fiend ability consumed far less blood energy than summoning the green stone giant. Moreover, he could still exert the destructive power of a second-level barbarian. In comparison, using the blood fiend ability of a demonic sword would naturally be of little use. So what if you have a silver-level magic weapon? How many times can you use your blood energy? Taking a deep breath and forcing himself to calm down, Kotikas' flame immediately discovered Gray's weakness. With a cold snort, he endured the pain in his abdomen and stabbed his spear at Gray. The flames on the spear rose sharply and turned into a golden flaming bird beast that attacked Gray. Poof! Gray slashed with the magic sword in his hand. Suddenly, a long black river shot out from the sword and attacked the golden flaming bird beast. The mixed ability of the three elements did consume more blood energy than the mixed ability of ice and wind blades. However, this was the blood fiend ability that he had mastered. The consumption was not as great as that of a silver-level magic weapon. Chi, chi, chi. The golden flaming bird beast and the long black mist river collided. There was no sound of explosion, only an extremely dull and oppressive sound that was almost inaudible like boiling water. Under the influence of the black mist, the golden flaming bird beast was like a giant bird that had fallen into an acidic fog, quickly melting away. As for the black mist, it was also rapidly reducing in size as it was wearing down the golden flaming bird beast. Finally, the golden flaming bird beast and the black mist were exhausted and dissipated. Damn it! Seeing the golden flaming bird beast being melted by the long black mist river and finally both disappeared, Kotikas' flame's face was terrifyingly gloomy. The ability of the weapon in his opponent's hand had indeed reached the desolated level. Originally, he still had some hope that the opponent's power had not reached the desolated level. However, there was no hope now. When the blood energy is exhausted, it will be the time of your death. A ruthless look flashed in his eyes. The golden flames on the spear in his hand rose sharply, and a golden flame wave swept toward Gray. He wanted to force Gray to continuously activate the silver-level magic weapon in his hand and exhaust Gray's blood energy as soon as possible. Poof! Facing the incoming golden flame wave, Gray had nothing to say. The black mist on the magic sword in his hand suddenly rose sharply and suddenly extended to several meters long, emitting a heart-palpitating aura. He then slashed down with the sword. Under this sword, the golden flame wave was suddenly split into two and slid out from both sides of him. A barbarian blood warrior of the Flame Kingdom was hit by one of the golden flames. His whole body was immediately set ablaze, and he screamed miserably as he turned into a skeleton. Several blood warriors of the Purple Moon Kingdom and Flame Kingdom who were fighting each other were hit by the other half of the golden flames. They did not even have time to scream before they were turned into ashes. The desolated level was the strongest level below the king level. The ability of the blood fiends of that level was a disaster for ordinary barbarians and those below the barbarian level. Whoosh! The long black mist river tumbled and surged toward Caduceus Flame with a destructive aura. Gray himself also rushed toward Caduceus Flame. Humph! Caduceus Flame snorted coldly. The golden flames on his spear rose sharply as if there was a golden sun on the spear, emitting a terrifying aura. The spear pierced toward the black mist. His physical strength and the ability of the blood fiends made the spear's power reach its maximum. Instantly, the black mist dissipated. Chapter 404. The black mist was filled with a destructive aura. Everything in its path was shattered and dissipated. The golden flame emitted a scorching heat. Wherever it passed, the earth and stone would melt, the blood and rain would evaporate, and the corpses would turn into ashes. When the two extremely tyrannical forces collided, there was no rumbling of landslides or tsunamis. There was only the sizzling sound of metal melting under the strong acid. The golden flame was being melted, and the black mist was also being consumed. In the end, the two powers dissipated at the same time. How is this possible? As one of the most eye-catching points on the battlefield, every action of Gray and Kodak Raging Flame was naturally observed. Therefore, when Gray used the black fog and injured Kodak Raging Flame, it immediately caused quite a number of exclamations. What? His Highness Curtis was the first to be injured. How is this possible? How did his attack become so strong? It can actually injure His Highness Curtis? What is that black mist? Is it his own blood fiend ability or the ability of the weapon? The Flame Kingdom's allied forces were all shocked. They could hardly believe what was happening in front of them. The opponent who should have been suppressed had actually injured His Highness Curtis. Most importantly, until now, the opponent had not been injured. He injured Curtis Blaze. He seriously injured Curtis Blaze. On the other hand, the Purple Moon Kingdom's allied forces were all pleasantly surprised. Although they were also curious about what kind of ability Gray's Black Mist was, no matter what kind of ability it was, as long as it could injure Curtis Blaze, it was good. Chi, Chi, Chi. Gray and Curtis Blaze continued to exchange blows. One person was surrounded by destructive black mist, like the son of the devil. His entire body was filled with a demonic aura. The other person was surrounded by golden flames that could burn everything, like the Son of God. His entire body was shining with divine light. Son of the devil and Son of God, demonic power and divine power. These two completely opposite powers were colliding and destroying each other. Different from where the other desolate blood warriors were fighting, the place where the two of them were fighting did not produce any terrifying sounds. The commotion was even worse than the battle between the two barbarian blood warriors. However, the people fighting in the surroundings were afraid that they would not be able to avoid the battle, so they quickly hid. The aftermath of a golden flame swept past, and a purple moon Kingdom Berserker's arm was only touched by a very small ball of flame. His arm instantly turned to ashes, and then the flames spread to his whole body. In the end, his entire body turned to ashes. Several of the Flame Kingdom's ferocious blood warriors were hit by the black mist. Hideous holes appeared on their bodies one after another, penetrating them from the front to the back. Blood flowed out like a faucet that couldn't be shut off. In the end, they screamed in pain and fear as they died. Facing Gray, whose combat strength had also reached the Desolation grade, Kodak. Rage Flame's battle was no longer easy. Every time they exchanged blows, he had to focus and go all out. He could not afford to be distracted. Whoosh! The purple blood fiend appeared behind him, and its sharp claws slammed down on his body. Immediately, a few shallow scratches were left on his back. He staggered, and his face was ashen. After being injured by Gray, he was now injured by a purple blood fiend that was only at the first level of the barbarian grade. Although it was only a slight injury, he was indeed injured. This made him extremely angry. Flames covered his long spear, and he whipped the purple blood fiend's body. Immediately, the purple blood fiend's mountain-like body was sent flying. However, in that instant, Gray had already rushed in front of him. He had no choice but to turn his spear and stab at Gray. This was an extremely powerful spear. It was the combination of his blood fiend's ability and his physical strength. Under this spear, the air was pierced through like a piece of cloth. Ripples appeared in the air, and the terrifying heat seemed to be able to melt space. Faced with this spear, a cold smile flashed across Gray's face. He did not dodge at all and allowed the long spear, which was wrapped in flames, to stab his body. At the same time, the long sword in his hand suddenly shone with a black light. It extended to a few meters long and pierced towards Caudicus Raging Flame's heart. Bang! A charred mark appeared on Gray's chest as he flew backward. It was as if he'd been hit by a meteorite, and he kept retreating. Puff! On the other side, a deep, slanted wound appeared on Caudicus Raging Flame's chest. Bright red blood kept seeping out from the wound. Although he had managed to avoid his heart at the critical moment, he was still grazed by the black fog that spread out from the black long sword and suffered a serious injury. You deserve to die. Feeling the piercing pain in his chest and seeing the hideous wound that was bleeding, Caudicus Raging Flame's face was filled with malevolence. He glared at Gray as if there were flames shooting out from his eyes. He was injured again, and his injuries were serious. Although he had also injured the other party, compared to the injuries on his body, the other party's injuries were like superficial wounds. The one who will die today is you. Climbing up, Gray sneered and attacked Caudicus Raging Flames with killing intent in his eyes. In the previous few battles, he would return with injuries in almost every battle. It could be said that he was extremely sullen. Now he could finally sweep away this sullen feeling. Caudicus Raging Flame's long spear was wrapped in flames and swept towards Gray's waist. The black fog on Gray's long sword spread out and also swept towards Caudicus Raging Flame's waist. Caudicus Raging Flames stabbed towards Gray's arm. The moment Gray's arm was stabbed, a black fog attacked Caudicus Raging Flames. Caudicus Raging Flames stabbed towards Gray's head. Gray's black fog wrapped around his sword and swept towards Caudicus Raging Flame's throat. Puff, puff, puff. Under Gray's attacks, Caudicus Raging Flames was injured one after another. Blood dyed his battle armor red, and the large amount of blood loss made his face pale. If it wasn't for the healing potion that he had swallowed earlier that was still working and healing his injuries, he would probably have collapsed due to excessive blood loss. I want you to die. Caudicus Raging Flame's gorgeous golden hair was wet from the rain and messy like weeds. His face was ferocious. Now, he was in a sorry state. It was even worse than when he was besieged by Gray and Gavin Kenneth. He really couldn't imagine how his opponent, who had been beaten by him to the point of being unable to fight back in the recent battles, could suddenly burst out with such powerful destructive power. Why hasn't your blood power been exhausted? He couldn't remember how many times they had fought. Logically speaking, after fighting so many times, his opponent's blood power should have been sucked dry by the silver-grade magic weapon. However, the truth was the opposite. He didn't even see his opponent take any healing potions. Then I'll have to disappoint you. My blood power is still very sufficient. Gray sneered. Mist spread on his long sword, and he stabbed at Caudicus Raging Flame's heart. Caudicus Raging Flame's expression changed. He raised his long sword and blocked Gray's sword. Then, his spear was covered in golden flames, and he turned it around and whipped it at Gray. At this moment, a cold, murderous intent burst out from Gray's eyes. Clatter! He suddenly grabbed the spear that was wrapped in flames with one hand and let the golden flames burn on his hand, while his other hand slashed at Caudicus Raging Flames with the other. Puff! Blood splattered and an arm flew high. Ah, my hand! Caudicus Raging Flames screamed in pain and let go of the spear that was grabbed by Gray. He retreated as if he was avoiding snakes and scorpions. He was in so much pain that he broke out in cold sweat. His left hand was cut off at the wrist, and a large amount of blood was seeping out. Even if he pressed it with his right hand, he couldn't stop it. It was like a faucet that couldn't be stopped. He roared furiously and was driven mad with anger. He was so angry that he couldn't believe that his hand had been cut off. This was a fact that he couldn't accept, and couldn't accept. I will exterminate your entire family. He glared at Gray with bloodshot eyes. His eyes were filled with hatred and cold, like a poisonous snake. Oomph. Gray sneered. He didn't take the other party's threats seriously at all. He put away the spear in his hand and quickly chased after the other party. Run, seeing Gray chasing after him. Caudicus' raging flames kept retreating. With one hand cut off and his weapon lost, he no longer had the will to fight. At this moment, the purple blood beast appeared behind him and swiped at him with its claws. Scram! He angrily punched the purple blood beast with his remaining right fist. The desolate level strength immediately sent the purple blood beast flying. However, this short delay allowed Gray to reach him. The long sword wrapped in black mist slashed coldly at his throat. He rolled pathetically to avoid the sword, but the tip of the sword brushed past his shoulder, leaving a deep wound. Your Highness Caudicus. Seeing that Curtis Inferno's arm had been cut off by Gray, and that he was in danger, with his life in danger at any time, the expressions of the Raging Flame Kingdom's alliance changed, and many people rushed over. Among them, the one at the front was a barbarian blood warrior with a battle axe in his hand. He roared and leaped high into the air, his huge axe chopping down at Gray. Gray swung his sword backward. The long sword wrapped in black fog swept past the barbarian blood warrior's waist. After that, Gray didn't even look and continued to chase after Caudicus' raging flames. Behind him, the barbarian blood warrior's body fell to the ground in two. Pu. Several Flame Kingdom's barbarian blood warriors rushed over. They didn't fear death and wanted to give Caudicus' raging flames a chance to escape. Gray's expression was cold. With a sweep of his long sword, several people and their weapons were cut in two. Caudicus' raging flames retreated pathetically. His injuries and the large amount of blood loss made him extremely weak and seriously affected his condition. Whoosh! Gray approached Caudicus' raging flames. Holding the long sword wrapped in black fog, he stabbed at Caudicus' raging flames with murderous intent. Don't even think about hurting His Highness. The Flame Kingdom's soldiers roared. Dozens of people rushed over, including barbarian blood warriors. One by one, they roared angrily. Their murderous aura soared as their gazes locked onto Gray. Stop! A barbarian blood warrior threw off his opponent and rushed over. Before he arrived, a huge bolt of lightning had already attacked Gray. Chapter 4:05. Pitter-patter. The huge lightning bolt was over 20 meters long and had a zigzag shape. It was extremely thick and flashed with a dazzling blue-white light. After it appeared, even the lightning flashing in the dark clouds in the sky paled in comparison. It was filled with a destructive aura. It was like a spear thrown by the god of thunder, aiming directly at Gray, wanting to nail Gray to the ground. Bang! Gray was hit by this thick lightning bolt and was pierced by this huge lightning spear. His body involuntarily flew backwards. However, at the same time he was pierced by the lightning spear, the long sword in his hand, which was wrapped in black light, also pierced through the left side of Caudicus' Raging Flame's chest. In that instant, it wasn't that Codic Blaze hadn't thought of using a blood skill to fight Gray to the death, but he didn't have the time. Before he could use his blood skill, the long sword had already pierced his chest. Puff! Spitting out a mouthful of blood, Caudicus' Raging Flame's expression gradually froze. At the moment of his death, his heart was filled with endless unwillingness. He, a desolate blood warrior, had actually died at the hands of a barbarian blood warrior. Moreover, this barbarian blood warrior was only at the first stage of the barbarian realm. He had originally planned to kill the other party today, but in the end, he had died at the other party's hands. He wanted to curse angrily, but no sound came out when he opened his mouth. A large amount of blood flowed out of his mouth, blocking his mouth. After staggering a few times, with a thud, his eyes filled with intense unwillingness, he fell straight to the ground. Prince Caudicus, the desolate blood warrior of the Flame Kingdom, had finally arrived. However, in front of him was a corpse with a hole in the chest and no heartbeat. The corpse's eyes were filled with anger, showing how unwilling he was at the moment of his death. Prince Caudicus is dead. Prince Codicus has been killed. The Flame Kingdom's allied army was in an uproar. They were all shocked, disbelieving, shocked, and furious. Although there were always deaths in war, the person who had died this time was too unusual. Not only was he a desolate blood warrior, but he was also a direct descendant of the royal family. His double identity caused his death to cause an unimaginable shock. Furthermore, he was already a desolate blood warrior at such a young age. He could definitely become one of the top few people in the future. He was one of the few children of the Flame Kingdom's royal family that were focused on nurturing. However, he had died on the road to becoming a king. Even the impact of the deaths of several desolate blood warriors could not compare to the impact of his death. Codicus Raging Flame died, was killed by Gray Flame. Gray Flames. How did he do it? The Purple Moon Kingdom's allied army was also in an uproar. However, unlike the Flame Kingdom's allied army, the Purple Moon Kingdom's allied army was surprised and happy. They were surprised that Gray actually had the ability to kill Codicus Raging Flame, and happy that Codicus Raging Flame had been killed. An enemy country's descendant with the potential to become a king had been killed. This was equivalent to killing a future king. The difference in the number of king warriors between the Purple Moon Kingdom and the Flame Kingdom had decreased. This was too significant. It could be said that killing several desolate blood warriors was not as valuable as killing Codicus Raging Flame. Although those people had the strength of a desolate blood warrior, they were already so old that their path to becoming a king was almost cut off. Without a miracle, it was almost impossible for them to become a king. However, Codicus Raging Flame was different. He was already a desolate blood warrior at such a young age. His future potential was huge, and it was almost certain that he would become a king. Gray actually killed a desolate blood warrior. Those who were familiar with Gray were all shocked. They did not expect that Gray's strength would increase so much again, and that he would be able to kill a desolate blood warrior. Codicus Raging Flame had actually been killed. The impact was too great. Even the desolate blood warriors could not help but be shocked by this news. The consequences and significance of this matter were too great. In the distance, Francis Violet was riding a desolate-level blood beast and fighting Niklos Blaze. Haha, good kill. After hearing the news, Francis Violet laughed heartily. He was very satisfied with this good news. He must die. Niklos Blaze did not say a word. His expression changed again and again. In the end, his eyes were filled with ruthlessness and killing intent. He turned around, wanting to charge at Gray. Do you think I'm a decoration? Francis Violet snorted coldly. He joined forces with the desolate-level blood beast and blocked Niklos Blaze, who was about to charge at Gray. You actually killed His Highness Curtis. The desolate blood warrior from the Flame Kingdom who had sent Gray flying with lightning was a bald old man. His left hand was supporting Codicus Raging Flame's corpse. His eyes were filled with killing intent as he looked at Gray. He gnashed his teeth, and his eyes were scarlet. He wanted nothing more than to eat Gray's flesh raw. So what if I killed him? This is a battlefield. Could it be that only he can kill me, and I can't kill him? After blocking the opponent's huge lightning attack at the price of a light injury, Gray stood up and stared at the bald old man. Once, a rune puppet with power comparable to a desolate blood warrior was able to force him into a difficult situation. In the end, he had to use a forbidden weapon to destroy the rune puppet. But it was different now. Not only did he have a powerful defense that even a desolate blood warrior would find difficult to injure, he also had a tri-elemental ability that was comparable to a desolate blood warrior. He was like a tiger that had grown wings. He no longer feared a desolate blood warrior. I want you to pay with your life for His Highness Codicus. The bald old man's entire body was filled with an intense, baleful aura. A huge blue and white lightning shot out once again, and compared to the lightning and thunder in the sky, it shot towards Golay. At the same time, he held a silver battle axe in his hand. He took a step forward and crossed more than 10 meters. The ground shook as he rushed towards Gray like an elephant galloping. That will depend on whether you have the strength. Gray snorted. A long black river appeared and rushed towards the huge blue-white lightning bolt. Finally, It collided between him and the bald old man. After colliding with a long river of black mist, the blue-white lightning bolt was like a huge electric eel that had fallen into the river. It crazily rolled around in the long river of black mist. However, the long river of black mist had a strong corrosive effect. It constantly melted the blue-white lightning, and finally both the lightning and the blue-white lightning disappeared. Whoosh! The bald old man rushed over. Blue-white lightning surged on the silver battle axe. It was like a huge hammer of Thor as it smashed towards Gray. The long sword in Gray's hand was suffused with black mist. He slashed at the bald old man's throat. He did not dodge the incoming battle axe that was wrapped in lightning. The bald old man's expression changed. He changed direction midway and swung his axe at Gray's long sword, blocking Gray's sword. Pa, pa, pa. Gray and the bald old man could not help but retreat. Mud and water splashed under their feet. The bald old man hurriedly changed direction to block. Although Gray's blood fiend ability was comparable to a desolate blood warrior, his own strength was still weaker than the bald old man's. Avenge His Highness Codicus. Kill him. Near Gray, dozens of soldiers from the Flame Kingdom's allied army rushed over with bloodshot eyes. They attacked Gray without fear of death, surrounding Gray so tightly that not even a drop of water could escape. With Gray as the center, the black fog spread out in all directions. At a speed visible to the naked eye, these dozens of people were like ice statues under the sun. They turned into ashes and disappeared. Even weapons on their bodies were no exception. Many of the Flame Kingdom's allied army who wanted to rush over stopped in their tracks. Their bodies were drenched in cold sweat. This was not an opponent that could be defeated with numbers. Even if they relied on numbers, they would at least be at the level of a barbarian warrior. For people at their level, numbers would not be enough. Crackle, crackle. At this moment, a huge blue-white lightning bolt crashed into Gray's body. Gray was immediately sent flying by the blue-white lightning. It was the bald old man who had attacked. He had brazenly attacked Gray while Gray was busy with those people from before. Naturally, there was no such thing as a sneak attack on the battlefield. Kill him. Lord Grover, kill him. Seeing Gray being sent flying by the lightning attack, these people could not help but shout excitedly. They were indeed unable to kill him, but someone else could. The lightning dissipated. Gray got up and moved his slightly numb body. Then, he suddenly rushed toward the bald old man. The power of the lightning was indeed strong, but the injuries it caused to him were only minor injuries at most. Why does he look like he's not injured at all? Damn it, is his defense really that strong? Seeing Gray get up and charge at the bald old man without any hindrance, these people could not help but feel disappointed. Even the desolate blood warrior's blood fiends were unable to seriously injure him. So how could they kill him? Whoosh! The black mist rolled and turned into a long river of mist that attacked the bald old man. Everything in its path was turned into ashes. Crackle, crackle. The thick blue-white lightning roared like the spear of the thunder god, but also like a lightning dragon bearing its fangs and brandishing its claws. Crackle, crackle, crackle. The two types of abilities collided from time to time, and in the end, they both dissolved. There was no violent energy leaking out, nor was there any deafening sound. It looked like an extremely ordinary confrontation, but it caused the hair of the people around to stand on end. This was because they had seen with their own eyes that dozens of people had been turned into charcoal by the enormous lightning, and more than 100 people had been melted by the black mist until not even their weapons remained. Bang, bang, bang. Gray and the bald old man exchanged blows. Sometimes their blood fiends collided, and sometimes they fought in close combat. Gray's fighting style was extremely radical. Even if he was injured, he would leave wounds on his opponent's body. His powerful defense allowed him to withstand his opponent's attacks at the cost of light injuries. If his opponent was injured by him, it would certainly be a serious injury. Poof! His fighting style of exchanging injury for injury made the bald old man fearful. After several exchanges, Gray seized the opportunity and slashed a deep wound on the bald old man's back. Blood immediately dyed the old man's back red. Lord Grover is also injured. The expressions of the surrounding flame kingdom's allied army changed. They naturally wouldn't forget that His Highness Kedik had been injured by Gray's exchanging injury for injury method. Injuries kept increasing on his body, and in the end, one of his arms was cut off, and he was finally killed. They couldn't help but faintly worry. Would Lord Grover follow in His Highness Kedika's footsteps and be injured by the opponent? Suddenly, avenge His Highness Kedik. With a roar, a black-haired young man rushed over. He was tall, and his body was as strong as a bear. He held a huge war blade in his hand. It was Tessie Jeffrey, a descendant of the Flame Kingdom's Duke family. Like Gray, he was also one of the most dazzling people on a battlefield.